A smile. That is what we are going to talk about today, friends. Not the polite, mechanical kind that we put on like a mask when we greet someone at work. Not the forced kind that we wear when someone points a camera at us and says, "Cheese." Not the kind that sits on the surface of the face but never quite reaches the eyes. No, we are going to talk about the other kind. The real kind. The kind that rises up from somewhere deep inside, like water finding its way to the surface of the earth. The kind that has no agenda, no expectation, no hidden motive. The kind that simply says, without words, "You are seen. You are not alone. And whatever you are carrying right now, it is okay." You know, there was a time in the ancient land of Kosala, during the days when the Buddha walked the dusty roads of India, when a merchant named Purna decided to travel to a distant region to spread the teachings of compassion. This was not a comfortable journey. The people of that region were known to be rough, hostile, even violent toward strangers. When Purna told the Buddha of his intention, the Buddha asked him a series of questions. "Purna, if the people of that land insult you and speak harshly to you, what will you think?" Purna replied, "I will think they are still good people, because they only use words and do not strike me with their hands." The Buddha continued, "And if they strike you with their hands?" Purna said, "I will think they are still good people, because they use only their hands and do not use weapons." The Buddha pressed further, asking what Purna would think if they used weapons, if they tried to take his very life. And Purna, with a calm and radiant face, said he would feel gratitude, because they would be releasing him from this body of suffering, and he would hold no anger toward them at all. Now, here is the part of this story that is often overlooked. When Purna arrived in that hostile land, he did not arrive with grand speeches. He did not arrive with elaborate arguments or displays of power. He arrived with a genuine warmth in his eyes and a smile on his face. He met hostility with openness. He met suspicion with kindness. And slowly, one person at a time, the people of that region began to soften. Not because Purna defeated them in debate. Not because he impressed them with miracles. But because his smile, his genuine warmth, communicated something that words alone never could. It said, "I am not here to conquer you. I am not here to judge you. I am here because I see your humanity, and that is enough." This is the quiet power we are exploring today. It is not dramatic. It does not make headlines. But it changes things. It changes people. It changes the invisible space between hearts. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about a time when you were having a truly difficult day. Maybe you had argued with someone you love. Maybe you were worried about money, about your health, about the future. Maybe you were just tired, bone tired, the kind of tired that sleep alone cannot fix. And then someone smiled at you. Maybe it was the person who handed you your coffee. Maybe it was a neighbor you passed on the sidewalk. Maybe it was a child, because children have a way of smiling that is so pure it almost hurts. And in that tiny moment, something cracked open inside you. Not in a painful way. In a releasing way. Like a window being opened in a stuffy room. Suddenly, there was air. Suddenly, there was light. And the weight you had been carrying did not disappear entirely, but it shifted. It became just a little bit more bearable. That is not a small thing, friends. In a world that so often feels heavy, anything that makes the weight more bearable is a kind of miracle. The Buddha spoke often about the practice of loving kindness, what is known in the Pali language as metta. And metta is not some abstract, lofty concept reserved for monks sitting in mountain caves. Metta is the very energy behind a genuine smile. When you smile at someone with true warmth, you are practicing metta whether you know it or not. You are sending out a silent message of goodwill. You are saying, with the curve of your lips and the softness of your eyes, may you be happy. May you be at ease. May you feel safe in this moment. That is metta. That is loving kindness in its most natural, most human form. There is a beautiful teaching in the Dhammapada, one of the most beloved collections of the Buddha's words, that says, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. And what is a smile, really, if not one of the simplest expressions of love? Not romantic love, not possessive love, but the kind of love that simply wishes well for another being. The kind of love that says, your existence matters. Your presence here, in this moment, has value. When you offer that to someone through a smile, you are participating in something ancient and sacred, something that has been softening the hard edges of the human experience since the very beginning. Let me share another story with you. In the time of the Buddha, there was an elderly woman named Kisagotami. Now, you may have heard certain stories about Kisagotami, but there is a lesser-known detail about her later life that is worth reflecting on. After Kisagotami had walked the path of deep grief and eventually found peace through the Buddha's teachings, she became known in her community not for her wisdom or her words, but for her smile. People would come to her, burdened by their own sorrows, and Kisagotami would simply sit with them. She would not rush to give advice. She would not try to fix their problems. She would look at them with eyes that had known the deepest sorrow, and she would smile. And that smile carried within it a message more powerful than any sermon: I have been where you are. I have felt what you feel. And I am still here. And there is still beauty. And there is still reason to be gentle with yourself. People left her presence feeling lighter, not because she had taken their problems away, but because her smile had given them permission to breathe. Permission to not have it all figured out. Permission to simply be human, with all the mess and confusion and pain that comes with being human. This is something we forget, isn't it? We live in a world that constantly tells us we need to be more, do more, achieve more. We are bombarded with messages that say we are not enough as we are. And in the middle of all that noise, all that pressure, a genuine smile from another person can feel like a lifeline. It can feel like someone throwing you a rope when you are drowning in the sea of your own expectations. And here is something fascinating about a smile, something that even modern science has come to recognize. When you smile at someone, and your smile is genuine, something happens in their brain. Mirror neurons fire. Their own facial muscles begin to respond, often without them even realizing it. Their body begins to produce small amounts of the very chemicals associated with happiness and relaxation. In other words, a genuine smile is literally contagious. You cannot keep it contained. It spills over. It spreads. It moves from one face to another like sunlight moving across a field. The Buddha understood this long before anyone had the language of neuroscience. He understood that our inner states are not private. They radiate outward. They touch other people. When you walk into a room carrying anger, people feel it, even if you say nothing. When you walk into a room carrying genuine warmth and joy, people feel that too. You become a kind of weather system, and your smile is like a warm front moving through, changing the atmosphere for everyone it touches. There was a monk in the Buddha's Sangha, the community of practitioners, whose name was Subhuti. Subhuti was known as the foremost among those who dwelled in peace. He was not the most eloquent speaker. He was not the most rigorous in his intellectual understanding of the teachings. But Subhuti had a quality that drew people to him like flowers turning toward the sun. He had an ever-present gentleness, and at the center of that gentleness was a smile that seemed to come from the very depths of his being. It was said that even the devas, the celestial beings, showered flowers upon Subhuti as he sat in meditation, so moved were they by the purity of his peaceful presence. Now, think about that for a moment. Here was a man who was not trying to impress anyone. He was not performing. He was not seeking attention or praise. He was simply being, fully and completely, with a peace that naturally expressed itself as a quiet, steady smile. And that smile was so powerful, so authentic, that it moved even beings in other realms. You do not need to be a monk or a saint to understand this. You have met people like this in your own life. People who, when they smile, you just know it is real. You can feel it in your chest. Something in you relaxes. Something in you opens up. And you think to yourself, this person sees me. This person is really here, right now, with me. That feeling is one of the greatest gifts one human being can give another. But let us be honest with each other for a moment. Smiling genuinely is not always easy, is it? There are days when the last thing you feel like doing is smiling. There are seasons of life when sorrow sits so heavily on your heart that the muscles of your face seem to have forgotten how to move in that direction. And that is okay. That is part of being alive. The Buddha never taught that we should pretend to be happy when we are not. He never taught that we should paste on a fake grin and deny our pain. In fact, the very first noble truth is an acknowledgement that suffering exists. That life includes difficulty. That pain is not a failure or a punishment but simply a part of the landscape of being human. So when we talk about the miracle of a smile, we are not talking about forcing something that is not there. We are talking about cultivating something deeper. We are talking about a smile that can coexist with sadness. A smile that knows pain intimately and still chooses to rise. Have you ever seen someone smile through tears? There is something so profoundly moving about that. It is not denial. It is not pretending. It is a kind of bravery. It is the heart saying, yes, this hurts. And yes, there is still something worth being tender about. In the ancient texts, there is a description of the Buddha's own smile that is quite striking. It is said that when the Buddha smiled, rays of light emanated from his mouth and illuminated the world in all directions. Now, whether we take this literally or as a beautiful metaphor, the message is the same. A smile that comes from a place of deep inner peace and compassion has a luminous quality. It lights things up. It reaches into dark corners. It touches places that words cannot reach. And this is perhaps the most important thing about a genuine smile. It communicates beyond language. It crosses every barrier that humans have built between themselves. Think about it. You can smile at someone who speaks a completely different language, and they will understand you perfectly. You can smile at a baby who has no words yet, and that baby will smile back, because the baby understands at a level that is deeper than language. You can smile at an elderly person who has forgotten many things, whose memory has become like a sieve, and your smile will reach them in a place that dementia cannot touch. This is because a smile speaks the language of the heart, and the heart has no need for grammar or vocabulary. There is a concept in Buddhist philosophy called mudita, which is often translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy. It is the ability to feel genuine happiness at the happiness and good fortune of others. Mudita is considered one of the four immeasurable qualities, alongside loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity. And a smile is one of the most natural expressions of mudita. When you see someone succeed and your face breaks into a genuine smile, that is mudita. When you see a child laughing and you cannot help but smile, that is mudita. When you hear good news about someone, even someone you do not know well, and warmth spreads across your face, that is mudita in action. The opposite of mudita is jealousy. And jealousy is one of those poisons that eats away at the heart from the inside. It is like drinking salt water when you are thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. But mudita, expressed through a genuine smile of appreciation for another's joy, is like drinking cool, fresh water. It refreshes not only the person you are smiling at but also yourself. This is one of the beautiful paradoxes of a smile: the more you give it away, the more it fills you up. You know, friends, there was a laywoman in the time of the Buddha named Visakha, who was one of the most generous and joyful supporters of the Sangha. Visakha was known throughout the city of Savatthi not primarily for her wealth, though she was indeed wealthy, but for her irrepressible joy and the warmth of her smile. She would greet monks and lay people alike with the same radiant kindness. She would visit the sick and the lonely, and the first thing she would offer, before food, before medicine, before any material comfort, was her smile. People said that Visakha's smile was like the first rain after a long drought. It brought relief. It brought life. It made parched things green again. What is remarkable about Visakha is that her life was not free from sorrow. She experienced loss. She experienced grief. She lived in a world that was just as complicated and painful as ours. But she had cultivated something within herself, a wellspring of kindness and joy, that allowed her smile to remain genuine even in difficult times. She did not smile because her life was perfect. She smiled because she understood that her smile was a gift she could offer to the world, a small but real act of generosity that cost her nothing and yet was worth more than gold. This brings us to something interesting. In Buddhist teaching, there are many forms of generosity. The most obvious is the giving of material things, food, clothing, shelter, money. But there is another form of generosity that is considered even more precious, and that is the giving of fearlessness, of reassurance, of comfort. When you smile at someone who is afraid, you are giving them fearlessness. When you smile at someone who is lonely, you are giving them companionship. When you smile at someone who feels invisible, you are giving them the gift of being seen. This kind of generosity is available to every single person, regardless of their circumstances. You do not need to be rich to be generous with your smile. You do not need to be powerful. You do not need to be anything other than what you are. And this is where the magic really begins. Because when you start to see your smile as a form of generosity, something shifts in the way you move through the world. You begin to notice opportunities everywhere. The cashier at the grocery store who looks exhausted. The person sitting alone on the bus, staring out the window with heavy eyes. The colleague who has been unusually quiet lately. The neighbor you pass every day but have never really acknowledged. Each of these moments is an invitation. An invitation to offer something simple and yet profoundly powerful. There is a passage in the Samyutta Nikaya, one of the collections of the Buddha's discourses, where the Buddha speaks about the ripple effect of wholesome actions. He compares a single act of kindness to a stone dropped into a still pond. The ripples spread outward in every direction, touching shores that the person who dropped the stone will never see. A smile works exactly this way. You smile at one person. That person, feeling lighter, smiles at the next person they encounter. That person, in turn, carries a little more warmth into their next interaction. And on it goes, ripple after ripple after ripple, spreading outward through families, through workplaces, through communities, touching lives you will never know about. This is not wishful thinking. This is the nature of interconnection, what the Buddha called dependent origination, the understanding that nothing exists in isolation. Everything we do, every small gesture, every fleeting expression on our face, is connected to everything else. We are woven into a fabric so intricate and so vast that a single smile in one corner can, in ways we may never fully understand, bring comfort to someone in a completely different corner. Think about the people who have shaped your life. Think about the teachers, the friends, the family members, the strangers who left a mark on you. How many of them do you remember not for what they said, but for how they made you feel? And how often was a smile at the center of that feeling? There is a reason we remember people's smiles long after we have forgotten their words. Words are processed by the mind. But a smile is received by the heart. And the heart has a much longer memory. Let me tell you about something that happened during the Buddha's time that illustrates this beautifully. There was a young man named Madakandali, the son of a wealthy but extremely miserly Brahmin named Adinapubhika. This father was so stingy that he would not spend even a small coin to help his own sick son. When Madakandali fell gravely ill, the father refused to call a physician. Instead, he tried to treat the boy with home remedies, and when those failed, he had the boy carried outside the house to the porch so that visitors would not see his possessions inside. The Buddha, walking on his morning alms round through the city of Samavati, saw the dying boy lying on the porch. The boy was too weak to move, too weak to speak, too weak to fold his hands in greeting. But when the Buddha's gaze met the boy's eyes, the Blessed One smiled at him. Just that. A smile of boundless compassion, of recognition, of tenderness. And Madakandali, in that final moment of his life, felt something extraordinary. He felt seen. He felt loved. He felt, perhaps for the first time, that his life had value. His heart filled with joy and devotion, and with that pure, joyful state of mind, he passed from this life and was reborn in a heavenly realm. Now, the point of this story is not about heavenly realms. The point is about what a single smile, offered at the right moment, with genuine compassion, can do for a person who is suffering. The point is that the Buddha did not need to give a long discourse to that dying boy. He did not need to explain the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path. He simply smiled. And in that smile was contained all the love and wisdom of a fully awakened heart. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. How many people in our world right now are lying on their own version of that porch? How many people are suffering in silence, feeling invisible, feeling forgotten, feeling like no one sees them? And how many of them could be touched, could be reached, could be given a moment of grace by something as simple as a genuine smile from a fellow human being? You do not need to be the Buddha to offer this. You do not need to be enlightened. You do not need to have figured out the meaning of life. You just need to be willing. Willing to look at another person, really look at them, and let your face express what your heart already knows, that they are a living being, walking through this world with their own joys and sorrows, their own hopes and fears, and they deserve to be acknowledged. They deserve to be met with warmth. There is a tendency in our modern world to overcomplicate things. We read self-help books by the dozen. We attend seminars. We download apps. We search for the perfect technique, the perfect formula for happiness. And there is nothing wrong with any of that. Learning and growth are beautiful things. But sometimes, in all our searching, we walk right past the simplest truths. We overlook the medicine that is already in our hands. A smile is the simplest form of medicine. It is the oldest remedy. It predates every pharmacy, every hospital, every therapy session. And it works. Not because it solves problems, but because it changes the inner weather. It shifts something in the atmosphere of the heart. And when the inner weather changes, everything looks a little different. There is a wonderful teaching attributed to the great master Shantideva, who lived several centuries after the Buddha. Shantideva wrote extensively about the practice of the Bodhisattva, the being who dedicates their life to the awakening and happiness of all living beings. And one of the things Shantideva emphasized is that the practice of compassion does not always require grand, heroic gestures. Sometimes it is as simple as speaking gently. Sometimes it is as simple as being patient. Sometimes it is as simple as offering a smile to someone who needs it. Shantideva wrote about the power of a joyful mind, saying that when we cultivate inner joy, we become a source of comfort and delight for everyone around us. We become like a shade tree on a hot day, offering coolness and rest to weary travelers. And what is the most natural, most visible expression of inner joy? A smile. When joy lives inside you, it finds its way to your face. It is not something you have to manufacture. It is something that simply emerges, like flowers emerging from soil that has been properly nourished. And this is a key point, friends. The genuine smile we are talking about is not something you do. It is something that happens when the conditions are right. And the conditions are right when you have nourished the soil of your heart with attention, with kindness, with a willingness to be present. When you are truly present with another person, when you are not distracted by your phone or your worries or your plans for tomorrow, a smile arises naturally. It is the face's way of saying, I am here. Right here. With you. Right now. Think about how rare that is in our world. Think about how often we are only half present in our interactions. Our body is here but our mind is somewhere else. We are nodding and saying the right words but our attention is scattered across a dozen different concerns. And the other person can feel it. They can feel the absence even when we are physically present. But when someone is truly, fully present with us, when their eyes are soft and their smile is real, we feel it in our bones. We feel it in that place beneath words, beneath thought, in the place where we are simply alive and aware. And something in us exhales. Something in us puts down its guard. We stop performing. We stop pretending. We just are. And in that mutual, just being, something sacred is born. Connection. Real, unguarded, tender connection. The kind that every human heart hungers for, even when we pretend otherwise. You know, there is an old story from the time of the Buddha that does not get told very often, and it involves a woman named Uttara. Uttara was a devoted lay follower who lived in the city of Rajagaha. She was married into a family that did not share her faith, and her mother-in-law was a harsh, critical woman who made Uttara's daily life very difficult. One day, in a moment of extreme frustration, the mother-in-law heated a ladle of oil and approached Uttara with the intention of hurting her. Uttara saw what was about to happen, and instead of reacting with anger or fear, she sat very still and directed a wave of loving kindness toward the older woman. She filled her mind with genuine compassion and care for this person who was about to cause her pain. And what happened next is the remarkable part. The oil, when it touched Uttara's skin, did not burn her. The texts describe it as feeling like cool water. Now, we can interpret this story in many ways. But what strikes me most is the image of Uttara's face in that moment. Try to picture it. Here is a woman who is about to be harmed, and instead of twisting her face in anger or fear, she is radiating metta. She is smiling inwardly, and perhaps outwardly too, with the kind of warmth that can cool even boiling oil. The mother-in-law, seeing this, was so stunned, so utterly disarmed, that she fell to her knees and begged for forgiveness. It was not Uttara's words that changed the older woman. It was her presence. It was the warmth she carried in her face and in her heart, even in the face of cruelty. This story tells us something important about what a genuine smile really is. It is not just a facial expression. It is an energetic field. It is a quality of being that radiates outward and changes the space around you. When your smile comes from a place of real inner warmth, it has a kind of protective power. Not in a magical, superstitious sense, but in a very real, very practical sense. People who are armed with hostility often do not know what to do when they are met with genuine warmth. It confuses them. It disrupts their script. They came prepared for a fight, and instead they found an open heart. And that open heart, expressed through a gentle smile, has the power to rewrite the entire encounter. Have you ever experienced this yourself? Have you ever been in a situation where someone was rude to you, someone cut you off in traffic, someone spoke sharply to you, and instead of firing back, you simply smiled? Not a sarcastic smile, not a passive-aggressive smile, but a genuine one. A smile that said, "It is all right. I understand. We are all struggling." And did you notice what happened? Did you notice the confusion on the other person's face? Did you notice how the tension in the air shifted, like a storm changing direction? That moment, that tiny, barely noticeable moment, is where transformation lives. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet choice to respond to hardness with softness. The Buddha once said that an angry person who is met with anger is like two fires feeding each other. They grow larger and more destructive together. But an angry person who is met with calm, with patience, with a smile of genuine compassion, is like a fire meeting water. The fire does not grow. It finds itself without fuel. It weakens. It fades. And what is left is not emptiness but warmth. A different kind of warmth. The warmth of understanding rather than the heat of conflict. Let us think about this in the context of our everyday relationships, because that is where the real work happens, is it not? It is easy to smile at a stranger. Strangers do not know our flaws. They do not push our buttons. They have not said that thing last Tuesday that still stings when we think about it. But the people we live with, the people we love, the people we share meals and arguments in silence with, those are the people who test our capacity for genuine warmth. Those are the people who show us where our smile becomes conditional. I will smile at you when you are nice to me. Have you ever caught yourself thinking that? I will be warm toward you when you behave the way I want you to behave. That is conditional warmth, and there is nothing wrong with it as a starting point. It is human. It is natural. But the Buddha invites us to look deeper. He invites us to consider what it would mean to smile at someone not because they earned it, but because they need it. What would it mean to offer warmth not as a reward for good behavior, but as a recognition of shared humanity? This is difficult. Let us not pretend otherwise. Smiling at someone who has hurt you, genuinely smiling, not performing forgiveness but actually feeling warmth toward them, is one of the hardest things a human being can do. It requires a kind of inner spaciousness, a willingness to see beyond the surface of the situation and into the heart of the person in front of you. It requires the ability to look at someone who has caused you pain and recognize that they, too, are in pain. Because hurt people hurt people. That is one of the saddest and truest equations in the human experience. There was a lay supporter of the Buddha named Nakulapita, an elderly man who was deeply devoted to his wife, Angulimala. They had been married for many decades, and their love for each other was legendary in their community. When Nakulapita fell seriously ill and was gripped by anxiety about dying, about leaving his wife behind, it was Angulimala who sat beside him and spoke with extraordinary tenderness. She told him not to worry. She told him that she was capable of caring for the family. She told him that she would continue to walk the path of practice. And as she spoke, she smiled at him. Not a brave smile. Not a smile that was trying to hide her own fear. But a smile that said, "We have walked this road together for so long, and even now, even at this difficult turn, I am with you. I am right here." Naculapita's fever broke. His health returned. And when he later told the Buddha about what had happened, the Buddha praised Naculamita's wisdom and her capacity for selfless love. But what stays with me about this story is not the words Naculamita spoke. It is the image of her sitting beside her sick husband, smiling at him in the lamplight, pouring all of her love into that one simple expression. She could have wept. She could have wailed. She could have let her fear consume her. Instead, she chose to be a source of comfort. She chose to let her face say what her heart felt: you are loved. You are not alone. And whatever comes, we will meet it together. Friends, this is what a smile can do within the intimate space of a relationship. It can be an anchor. It can be a lighthouse. When everything is uncertain, when the future is unclear, when the waves of life are high and rough, a smile from someone who loves you is like a fixed point on the horizon. It gives you something to orient toward. It reminds you that even in the middle of the storm, there is steadiness somewhere. There is shelter. And it works both ways. When you offer a genuine smile to someone you love, especially during a difficult moment, you are not just comforting them. You are also comforting yourself. The act of smiling, of choosing warmth, of opening your heart when everything in you wants to close it, creates a feedback loop. Your body receives the signal from your face and begins to relax. Your breath deepens. Your shoulders drop. Your heart rate slows. You begin to feel, even if only slightly, the very peace you are trying to offer. This is one of the beautiful secrets of generosity: the giver always receives. There is a teaching in the Anguttara Nikaya where the Buddha describes the qualities of a person who is dear and agreeable to others. Among these qualities, he mentions a pleasant demeanor, a warm countenance, a face that is open and welcoming. This is not superficial advice about being polite. This is a deep observation about how we affect each other. The Buddha understood that we are social beings, wired for connection, and that the face is the primary canvas on which we paint our inner state for others to read. When your canvas shows warmth, openness, and genuine friendliness, you create an environment in which others can relax, open up, and be themselves. You become a safe harbor. And how desperately the world needs safe harbors right now. How many people go through their entire day without encountering a single moment of genuine warmth? How many people return home in the evening feeling unseen, unappreciated, unknown? How many people are starving, not for food, but for the simple nourishment of a kind face, a warm glance, a smile that says, "You matter"? There is a phenomenon that psychologists have studied extensively, and it aligns perfectly with what the Buddha taught thousands of years ago. It is called emotional contagion. The idea is that emotions spread from person to person, much like a virus, but in this case, the virus can be beneficial. When you smile at someone, their mirror neurons respond, and they are physiologically inclined to smile back. But it goes deeper than that. The emotional state behind the smile also transmits. If you are genuinely feeling warmth and kindness, the person receiving your smile does not just mimic the muscular movement. They begin to feel the warmth and kindness as well. It is as if the heart has its own form of communication, its own wireless signal, and a genuine smile is the transmission. This means that every time you smile at someone with real warmth, you are doing something far more significant than you realize. You are not just making a pleasant face. You are broadcasting a frequency. You are putting a particular kind of energy into the environment. And that energy does not stop with the person you smiled at. It moves through them and into their next interaction, and the one after that, and the one after that. You are, in a very real sense, changing the emotional ecosystem of the world, one smile at a time. The Buddha would not have been surprised by any of this. He spent 45 years teaching about the interconnected nature of all things, about how no action exists in isolation, about how even the smallest gesture of kindness sends ripples through the web of existence. He understood that the world is not changed primarily by grand political movements or sweeping reforms, though those have their place. The world is changed, moment by moment, interaction by interaction, by the quality of presence that individual human beings bring to their encounters with each other. And a smile is perhaps the purest, most concentrated expression of that quality of presence. There is a story from the Jataka Tales, the collection of stories about the Buddha's previous lives, that beautifully illustrates this point. In one of his past lives, the being who would become the Buddha was born as a deer, a golden deer of extraordinary beauty who lived in the forests near the river Ganges. One day, this golden deer saved the life of a man who had fallen into the river and was drowning. The deer plunged into the water, carried the man to safety on his back, and when the man was lying on the riverbank, gasping for breath, the deer looked at him with gentle eyes and a soft expression that the texts describe as a smile. The deer asked for nothing in return. He did not demand gratitude or repayment. He simply looked at the man with warmth and turned to walk back into the forest. Later, that same man would betray the deer, leading hunters to his hiding place in exchange for a reward from the king. But when the golden deer was brought before the king, instead of showing anger or resentment, the deer looked at the man who had betrayed him with the same gentle expression, the same soft smile. And the king, witnessing this extraordinary capacity for compassion, was so moved that he declared the deer under royal protection and released him back into the forest. What stays with me about this story is the consistency of the smile. The golden deer smiled at the man he saved, and he smiled at the man who betrayed him. It was the same smile. Because it was not a reaction to circumstances. It was an expression of character. It was not dependent on how the deer was being treated. It was an overflow of who the deer truly was. And this is the kind of smile that changes things. Not the smile that appears only when conditions are favorable, but the smile that comes from a wellspring so deep that even betrayal cannot poison it. Can we aspire to that? Honestly, for most of us, that level of equanimity feels very far away. And that is okay. We are not golden deer. We are messy, complicated, beautifully imperfect human beings. But the direction is what matters. The aspiration is what matters. Every time we choose to smile when it would be easier to scowl, every time we choose warmth when it would be easier to be cold, we are moving in that direction. We are strengthening a muscle. We are deepening a practice. And over time, drop by drop, the wellspring fills. You know, there is a charming story about Ananda, the Buddha's devoted attendant, that reveals something tender about the relationship between these two men. Ananda served the Buddha faithfully for 25 years, and in all that time, he paid close attention to everything the Buddha did. And one of the things Ananda noticed was that the Buddha never greeted anyone without a smile. Whether it was a king or a beggar, a learned scholar or a simple farmer, a devoted follower or a hostile critic, the Buddha's face would light up when he saw them. It was as if every person who came into his presence was the person he had been waiting for all day. Ananda once asked the Buddha about this, and the Buddha explained that every being he encountered was worthy of his full attention and his full warmth. Not because they had done something to deserve it, but because they were alive, and being alive is a precious and fragile thing. Every being he met was walking the same road he had once walked, the road of seeking, of struggling, of trying to find a way through the forest of confusion. And the least he could offer them was a smile of recognition, a smile that said, "I see you. I know the road you are walking. And I honor your courage in walking it." What a beautiful way to move through the world. To see every person you meet not as a stranger, not as a means to an end, not as an obstacle or an inconvenience, but as a fellow traveler on this vast, mysterious road of existence. And to greet them with the warmth that such a recognition naturally inspires. Friends, we often underestimate how much power we have to affect each other. We think that making a difference requires money, status, authority, or some kind of special talent. But the truth is that every single one of us, every day, has countless opportunities to brighten someone's world. And the simplest, most accessible tool we have for doing this is a smile. Not a performance. Not a strategy. Just a genuine, heartfelt, unhurried smile that says, without needing any words at all, "I am glad you exist." Have you ever stopped to think about what it would feel like to receive that message from every person you met today? "I am glad you exist." Imagine walking down the street and having every face you encountered radiating that message. Imagine going to work and feeling, from the moment you walked through the door, that the people around you were genuinely happy to see you. Not because you were important. Not because you could do something for them. But simply because you were there. Simply because you were alive. How would that change your day? How would that change your sense of yourself? How would that change the way you move through the world? This is not a fantasy. This is a possibility that lives in every moment, waiting to be activated. And the activation begins with you. Not with waiting for someone else to smile first, but with being the one who dares to go first. Being the one who opens the door. Being the one who says, through the simple act of smiling, "I am willing to be warm. I am willing to be vulnerable. I am willing to let you see that I am not hiding behind a mask." There is a particular quality that the Buddha called mudita, which we touched on earlier, that deserves a deeper look in this context. Mudita is usually translated as sympathetic joy, the ability to rejoice in the happiness of others. But there is a subtlety to mudita that often gets missed. Mudita is not just about feeling happy when others are happy. It is also about offering joy as a gift, even when you yourself are not in a particularly joyful state. It is about understanding that your smile, your warmth, your openness, can be a source of nourishment for others, and choosing to offer that nourishment generously. Think of it like this. A candle does not lose anything by lighting another candle. Its own flame does not diminish. If anything, the room becomes brighter. When you smile at someone, your own warmth does not decrease. It increases. Because warmth, Like love, like kindness, like all the truly valuable things in life, does not obey the laws of scarcity. It obeys the laws of abundance. The more you give, the more you have. The more you share, the more you find within yourself to share. There was a community of nuns in the time of the Buddha, living in a grove near the city of Samavati, who were known for a particular practice they had developed on their own. Every morning, before they went on their alms round, they would stand in a circle and smile at each other. Not say anything. Just smile. One by one, they would look into each other's eyes and let their faces express the genuine warmth and affection they felt for their sisters in the practice. It was a simple ritual, barely a few minutes long, but the nuns said it transformed their entire day. They said it reminded them, before they stepped out into the world, that they were held. That they belonged. That they were part of something greater than themselves. And when they walked through the streets of Samavati on their alms round, that warmth was still in their faces. The people of the city noticed. They began to say that the nuns from that particular grove had a special quality about them, a lightness, a radiance, that made people want to give to them, want to be near them, want to listen to what they had to teach. And it all started with a smile. A simple, silent, morning smile shared among friends. What if we borrowed this practice? Not the formal, ritualistic version of it, but the spirit behind it. What if, before we stepped out into our day, we took a moment to smile at someone we live with? A real smile. An unhurried smile. A smile that was not rushing toward the next task but was fully present in that one small moment of connection. What if we let our face be the first gift we offered the world each morning? I think, if we did this, we would discover something surprising. We would discover that the act of smiling changes us from the inside out. It is not just an outward expression. It is an inward practice. When you choose to smile, genuinely and intentionally, you are choosing to orient your heart toward warmth. You are choosing to look for what is good, what is beautiful, what is worthy of tenderness. And the more you practice this orientation, the more natural it becomes, until one day you realize that the smile is no longer something you are doing. It is something you are. The ancient texts describe the Buddha as someone who embodied this quality completely. His smile was not separate from his being. It was not a feature he put on when it was appropriate. It was the natural expression of a mind that had been completely freed from hostility, from fear, from the need to protect itself against others. The Buddha's smile was the smile of a person who had nothing to defend, nothing to prove, and nothing to hide. And in that radical openness, that complete vulnerability, there was a power so great that it could melt the hardest hearts and illuminate the darkest corners of the human experience. We may never reach that level of inner freedom. Or we may. Who knows what is possible? But the journey toward it begins with something so simple that it almost seems too easy. It begins with the willingness to soften your face. To let the muscles around your eyes relax. To let the corners of your mouth lift, gently, naturally, like a leaf being carried upward by a warm breeze. It begins with a smile. And from that small beginning, who knows what might unfold? Who knows what walls might dissolve, what distances might close, what loneliness might find itself suddenly, unexpectedly, gently answered by the simple presence of another human being who cared enough to be warm. You know, There is something about the way we carry our faces through the world that we rarely stop to examine. We spend so much time thinking about the words we say, choosing them carefully, editing them, sometimes rehearsing them in our heads before we speak. But our face speaks before our mouth ever opens. Our face is the first thing people read when they encounter us. And most of the time, we are completely unaware of what our face is saying. Have you ever caught your reflection in a window or a mirror when you were not expecting it, and been startled by the expression you saw? Maybe your face looked harder than you thought it was. Maybe it looked more tired, more closed, more defended than you realized. That reflection is what other people see all day long. That is the version of you that walks into rooms, stands in lines, sits across from loved ones at dinner. And it is worth asking, gently and without judgment, what is my face saying to the world? This is not about vanity. This is not about looking pretty or handsome or youthful. This is about something much deeper. It is about the emotional climate you create around you simply by the way you carry your face. Because your face is not a private thing. It is a public offering. Whether you intend it to or not, your face communicates constantly. It sends signals to every person who sees it. And those signals have real effects on real people. There was a monk in the early Buddhist community named Vajrayana, who was considered the foremost poet among the Buddha's disciples. Vajrayana had a gift for language that was extraordinary, and he could compose verses on the spot that moved people to tears. But before Vajrayana became a monk, he was a proud and arrogant young man, a wandering poet who used his talent to defeat others in verbal competitions. He would enter a town, challenge the local scholars and poets, demolish them with his wit and eloquence, and walk away with the prize money and the applause. His face during these competitions was sharp, fierce, predatory. He wore the smile of a conqueror, and it was not the kind of smile that brought comfort to anyone. When Vajrayana encountered the Buddha and decided to ordain, something remarkable happened to his face over time. The sharpness softened. The predatory glint in his eyes was replaced by something luminous and gentle. His smile changed. It was no longer a weapon. It became a bridge. And the poetry that emerged from this new Vajrayana was not poetry designed to defeat or impress but poetry that healed. He would compose verses for grieving families, for struggling monks, for confused lay people, and he would offer these verses with a face so warm and open that people felt the words not just in their ears but in their chests. One of the elder monks once remarked that Vajrayana's smile had become the most eloquent thing about him, even more eloquent than his poetry. Because his poetry required understanding of language, but his smile required no understanding at all. It communicated directly, heart to heart, without any intermediary. This transformation in Vajrayana points to something important. The quality of our smile is directly connected to the quality of our inner life. When the inner life is turbulent, competitive, defensive, the smile reflects that. It becomes a mask, a strategy, a performance. But when the inner life begins to settle, when gentleness begins to take root, the smile transforms. It becomes transparent. It becomes honest. It becomes an accurate reflection of what lives inside. And people can feel the difference immediately, even if they could not explain how they know. This is why a child's smile is so disarming. A child has not yet learned to separate the inner world from the outer expression. When a child smiles, the inside and the outside match perfectly. There is no gap, no filter, no calculation. The smile is pure signal, undistorted by self-consciousness or ulterior motive. And that purity is what moves us. That is what makes us stop in the middle of a busy day and feel, for just a moment, that the world is fundamentally good. The Buddha spoke often about the importance of this kind of inner-outer alignment. He called it Samavati and Samakamanta, right speech and right action, but at a deeper level, he was pointing to something even more fundamental, the alignment of intention and expression. When what you feel inside matches what you express outside, you are living with integrity. You are whole. You are not fragmented. And this wholeness is magnetic. People are drawn to it because it is so rare. Most of us walk around with a significant gap between what we feel and what we show. We smile when we are angry. We say, "I am fine," when we are falling apart. We perform competence when we feel lost. And all of this fragmentation is exhausting, both for us and for the people around us who sense, on some level, that something does not quite add up. A genuine smile is a moment of integration. It is a moment when the inside and the outside come together. When you smile genuinely, your body, your mind, and your heart are all saying the same thing. And that coherence, that alignment, that wholeness, is felt by everyone around you. It is like a clear bell ringing in a noisy room. It cuts through the static. It reaches people. Friends, let me share with you a lesser-known episode from the life of the Buddha that has always moved me deeply. There was a period during the Buddha's ministry when he spent a rainy season retreat in the Paralyaka forest, completely alone. The circumstances that led to this retreat were not pleasant. A group of monks in Kosambi had been quarreling bitterly, splitting into factions, refusing to listen to the Buddha's counsel for reconciliation. Despite his best efforts, the monks continued to fight. And so the Buddha, without announcement or fanfare, simply walked away. He left the quarreling monks and went alone into the forest. In the Paralyaka forest, the Buddha was attended by an elephant, a great bull elephant who had also left his herd, tired of the noise and conflict of the group. This elephant brought the Buddha water and food, cleared a path for him through the underbrush, and stood watch over him at night. And the texts describe a beautiful scene, the Buddha sitting beneath a sal tree, and the elephant standing nearby, and between them, a silence so profound and so peaceful that it seemed to vibrate. And in that silence, the Buddha smiled at the elephant. And the elephant, in whatever way elephants express contentment, responded with a calm and gentle presence. What I find so touching about this story is that the Buddha's smile was offered to an elephant. Not to a crowd of adoring followers. Not to a king or a wealthy patron. Not to anyone who could offer him anything in return. He smiled at a creature who had chosen, like him, to walk away from conflict and toward peace. And in that smile was a recognition that the desire for peace, for harmony, for gentleness, is not limited to human beings. It is something that lives in all sentient creatures. The elephant understood the Buddha's smile. Not intellectually, but at the level of the heart. And the Buddha understood the elephant's quiet devotion. And in that mutual understanding, no words were needed. No teachings were given. Just a smile, offered across the divide between species, bridging a gap that most would consider unbridgeable. If a smile can cross the boundary between a human being and an elephant, imagine what it can do between two human beings who share a language, a culture, a neighborhood, a workplace, a home. The distances between us are so much smaller than we think. We build walls in our minds that are paper thin, and then we convince ourselves they are made of stone. A smile is like a hand reaching through that paper, showing us that the wall we thought was impenetrable was never really a wall at all. It was just a story we told ourselves about separation. And stories can be rewritten. You know, there is a particular kind of smile that deserves special attention, and that is the smile of forgiveness. When someone has hurt you, and you have carried that hurt for a long time, there comes a moment, if you are fortunate, when you are ready to let it go. And in that moment of release, a smile sometimes appears on your face that is unlike any other smile. It is not a smile of happiness exactly. It is a smile of freedom. It is the smile of a prisoner walking out of a cell. It is the smile of someone who has been holding a heavy stone for years and has just set it down. There is relief in that smile. There is tenderness. There is a kind of aching beauty that comes from having known suffering and having chosen, freely and deliberately, to stop feeding it. The Buddha taught extensively about forgiveness, though he did not always use that word. He spoke about the release of resentment, the letting go of grudges, the abandonment of ill will. And he made it clear that holding on to anger is not a punishment for the person who wronged you. It is a punishment for yourself. The famous simile he used was that of a person who picks up a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at an enemy. The one who gets burned first is the one who holds the coal. Letting go of that coal, releasing the grip of resentment, is an act of self-compassion. And the smile that accompanies that release is the visible sign of a heart that has chosen its own freedom over the bitter satisfaction of holding on to pain. There was a laywoman named Samavati who was the chief queen of King Udina in the city of Kosambi. Samavati was known throughout the kingdom for her extraordinary kindness and her devotion to the Buddha's teachings. She had a rival in the palace, a woman named Magandiya, who was consumed by jealousy and hatred toward Samavati. Magandiya plotted against her, spread lies about her, and even attempted to have her killed on multiple occasions. Through all of this, Samavati never once retaliated. She never spoke ill of Magandiya. She never sought revenge. Instead, she practiced metta toward her rival, directing thoughts of genuine well-being toward the very person who wished her harm. The remarkable thing about Samavati was not just her inner practice but her outward demeanor. Those who knew her said that her face never hardened when Magandiya's name was mentioned. She did not flinch, did not grimace, did not allow a shadow to pass across her features. Instead, she maintained a steady, warm presence that those around her found deeply inspiring. Her smile, they said, did not discriminate. It was the same whether she was greeting a friend or thinking about the person who wanted to destroy her. This is the kind of smile that transforms not only the person who wears it but the entire environment around them. Samavati's refusal to let hatred distort her face was a kind of radical act. It was a statement, made not in words but in the very set of her features, that she would not allow another person's cruelty to determine the quality of her inner life. She would not hand over that power. She would keep the authorship of her own heart, and she would express that authorship through the warmth of her face. What a powerful lesson this is for all of us. How often do we allow other people to determine the expression on our face? How often do we let someone's rudeness steal our smile? How often do we give away our warmth because someone else decided to be cold? Every time we do this, we are handing over the keys to our inner kingdom. We are saying, "You decide how I feel. You decide what my face shows the world." But Samavati's example suggests a different possibility. The possibility that our smile can be sovereign. That it can belong to us, fully and completely, and that no one has the power to take it away unless we give them that power. This does not mean suppressing genuine emotion. This does not mean pretending that hurt does not hurt. Samavati was a deeply feeling person. She was not cold or detached. She felt the sting of Magandia's cruelty. But she chose not to let that sting determine who she was. She chose to be the author of her own expression, the keeper of her own warmth. And in doing so, she became a beacon for everyone around her, a living demonstration that it is possible to be gentle in a harsh world, to be warm in a cold climate, to smile in the midst of difficulty without that smile being a lie. Friends, there is a beautiful Pali word, piti, that is often translated as joy or rapture. But piti is not the wild, grasping joy of getting something you want. Piti is a quieter, deeper joy that arises naturally when the mind is at ease. It is the joy of a bird in flight, the joy of water finding its way downhill, the joy of a flower opening in the morning sun. Piti is the joy that has no external cause. It arises from within, from the simple fact of being alive and aware, and it expresses itself naturally as a smile. When piti is present, you do not need a reason to smile. The smile is the reason. The aliveness is the reason. The fact that you are here, breathing, sensing, experiencing this extraordinary and improbable gift of consciousness, that is reason enough. And when you smile from this place, from the place of piti, your smile carries a particular fragrance. It is the fragrance of freedom. It does not depend on external conditions. It is not a response to something pleasant happening. It is an expression of the fundamental okayness of being alive, even when life is complicated, even when things are not going according to plan, even when the future is uncertain. The Buddha described piti as one of the factors of awakening, one of the qualities that naturally develops as a person walks the path toward greater awareness and freedom. And this is worth reflecting on. The Buddha did not say that joy is a luxury, something to be enjoyed only after all your problems are solved. He said it is a factor of awakening. It is part of the path itself. Cultivating joy, allowing joy, expressing joy through a smile, these are not frivolous activities. They are deeply spiritual practices. They are part of the work of becoming fully human, fully awake, fully alive. And yet, many of us carry a subtle belief that suffering is more noble than joy. That being serious is more mature than being light-hearted. That carrying a heavy, somber expression on our face is somehow more authentic than carrying a smile. Where did this belief come from? It did not come from the Buddha. The Buddha was described by those who knew him as a profoundly joyful person. Not joyful in a giddy, superficial way, but joyful in the way that a deep lake is still. His joy was not on the surface, tossed about by every passing wind. It was in the depths, stable and unchanging, and it expressed itself as a steady, luminous warmth that everyone who came near him could feel. There is an account in the Pali Canon of a Brahmin named Dona who encountered the Buddha walking along a road. Dona was struck by the Buddha's appearance. There was something about him that was different from any other person Dona had ever met. His movements were graceful and unhurried. His face was serene. And there was a quality about his smile that Dona found almost otherworldly. Dona approached and asked, "Sir, are you a god?" The Buddha said no. "Are you a celestial being?" "No." "Are you a spirit?" "No." "Then what are you?" And the Buddha replied, "I am awake." What interests me about this encounter is what prompted Dona's question. It was not something the Buddha said. It was something Dona saw. He saw a quality of presence, a quality of peace, a quality of quiet joy that was so extraordinary, so far beyond what he had encountered in ordinary human beings, that he could not categorize it. And at the center of that extraordinary presence was a smile. A smile so deep, so real, so free from pretension and fear, that it made a stranger stop in the middle of a dusty road and ask, "What are you?" This is the potential that lives inside every smile. Not just the potential to brighten someone's day, though that is wonderful enough. But the potential to make someone stop and wonder. To make someone question their assumptions about what is possible for a human being. To make someone think, if this person can carry that much warmth, that much peace, that much genuine joy, maybe I can too. Maybe it is not as far away as I thought. And that is perhaps the deepest gift a smile can offer. Not just comfort, not just warmth, not just a moment of connection, but inspiration. The inspiration to believe that the human heart is capable of extraordinary goodness. The inspiration to believe that gentleness is not weakness but strength. The inspiration to believe that in a world full of noise and conflict and rushing, it is still possible to be still. It is still possible to be kind. It is still possible to meet another person's eyes and, without saying a single word, communicate everything that matters. There is a practice in some Buddhist traditions called smiling meditation, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You sit quietly, close your eyes, and gently allow a smile to form on your face. Not a forced smile. Not a wide grin. Just the faintest upturn of the lips, the slightest softening around the eyes. And then you direct your attention inward, noticing what happens in your body, in your mind, in your heart, when you smile. This practice, simple as it is, can be surprisingly powerful. People who try it often report feeling a wave of warmth move through their body, a softening of tension they did not even know they were holding, a sense of peace that seems disproportionate to such a small physical act. The great meditation master Thich Nhat Hanh was a strong advocate of this practice. He often said, "Sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy." This is a profound observation. We usually think of smiling as a consequence of feeling good. But it can also work the other way around. The physical act of smiling can create the conditions for feeling good. It is as if the body, when it takes the shape of joy, begins to generate joy. The form creates the content. The gesture creates the feeling. This is not about faking it. This is about priming the pump. It is about giving your body a gentle nudge in the direction of warmth and seeing what follows. And what often follows is surprising. A memory of something beautiful. A feeling of gratitude for something you had forgotten. A sudden awareness of the simple goodness of being alive, of having lungs that breathe, of having eyes that see, of having a heart that beats without you having to ask it to. These are not small things. These are miracles hiding in plain sight. And sometimes all it takes to notice them is the gentle act of turning up the corners of your mouth and letting your face lead your heart back home. There is something else about a smile that we rarely talk about, and it has to do with courage. Yes, courage. Because smiling at a stranger, really smiling, from the heart, takes a certain kind of bravery. It is an act of vulnerability. When you smile at someone, you are opening yourself up to them. You are saying, "Here I am, unguarded, unarmed, offering you my warmth." And there is always the possibility that they will not smile back. There is always the possibility that they will look away, or look through you, or give you a blank stare that makes you feel foolish for having tried. And that small rejection, that tiny moment of unreturned warmth, can sting more than we would like to admit. But here is the thing. The value of a smile does not depend on whether it is returned. A smile that is given freely, with no expectation of reciprocation, is complete in itself. It is like a gift placed on a doorstep. Whether the person opens the door and picks it up is beyond your control. But the act of placing it there, the act of generosity, the act of caring enough to offer warmth to another person, that is yours. That belongs to you. And no one can take it away, not even the person who does not smile back. The Buddha taught that the value of a wholesome action lies in the intention behind it, not in the result it produces. If you smile at someone with genuine warmth and they do not respond, your action is still wholesome. Your intention was still pure. The merit, if we want to use that word, the goodness, the beauty of the gesture is fully intact. You planted a seed of kindness. Whether it blooms today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now is not your concern. Your only job is to keep planting. And sometimes, friends, the seeds we plant with our smiles bloom in ways we never imagined and will never know about. The person who did not smile back at you in the grocery store may have gone home and, without quite knowing why, been a little gentler with their children that evening. The colleague who barely acknowledged your warm greeting in the hallway may have, later that night, felt a moment of unexpected warmth and traced it back, dimly, to that moment when someone was kind to them for no reason. We never see the full harvest of our kindness. We only see the planting. And we have to trust that the soil is good, that the seeds are viable, and that the rain will come in its own time. This trust, this willingness to be kind without needing to see the results, is itself a form of faith. Not faith in the religious sense, necessarily, but faith in the basic goodness of the human heart. Faith that warmth matters. Faith that kindness is never wasted. Faith that every smile, no matter how small, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is a vote cast in favor of a gentler world. And when enough votes are cast, the world changes. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But steadily, quietly, like dawn spreading across a landscape. One shade lighter, then another, until suddenly you realize that what was dark is now filled with light, and you cannot point to the exact moment it happened because it happened gradually, one small brightness at a time. And is that not exactly how healing works in a human life? Not in one explosive moment of transformation, but in 1,000 small moments of grace, each one barely noticeable on its own, but together forming something that can only be described as a new beginning. There is something that happens to us when we have been hurt many times. We develop a kind of armor. We learn to keep our face neutral, our expression guarded, our warmth hidden safely behind walls where it cannot be used against us. This is intelligent, in a way. It is the heart's attempt to protect itself. But the problem with armor is that it does not discriminate. It keeps out the bad, yes, but it also keeps out the good. It keeps out the warmth that other people want to offer us. It keeps out the sunlight that wants to reach our skin. And after a while, we forget that we are wearing it. The armor becomes our face. The guardedness becomes our default. And the genuine smile that once came so naturally to us, the smile we had as children, becomes a stranger. Have you felt this? That moment when you realize you have not really, truly smiled in a long time. Not the polite version. Not the social version. But the deep, full, heart-open version that makes your whole face change shape. If you have felt this, you are not alone. So many people walk through their days with their smiles locked away in a vault, convinced that the world is too dangerous, too disappointing, too harsh to risk opening up. And in a sense, they are right. The world can be all of those things. But it can also be astonishingly tender. It can also surprise you with moments of beauty so sudden and so piercing that they take your breath away. And those moments are much harder to notice, much harder to receive, when your face is set in stone. In the time of the Buddha, there was a man named Angulimala. Now, Angulimala's story is well known in its broad outlines, but there is a particular moment within that story that is worth dwelling on, a moment that is often passed over quickly in the telling. Angulimala, before his transformation, was a terrifying figure. He had been led astray by a corrupt teacher who convinced him that he needed to collect 1,000 human fingers in order to achieve liberation. Angulimala had killed many people and wore a garland of their fingers around his neck. He was feared by everyone. Villages emptied at the rumor of his approach. Soldiers refused to pursue him. He was, by any measure, the last person you would expect to encounter a smile. But the moment I want to focus on is not the dramatic encounter between Angulimala and the Buddha on the road, which is the part usually told. The moment I want to focus on is the morning after Angulimala's ordination. After the Buddha had calmed him, after Angulimala had laid down his sword and taken robes, there was a night that passed. A long, dark, trembling night during which Angulimala sat with the enormity of what he had done. The weight of all those lives. The horror of what he had become. The seemingly impossible task of living with his past. And then morning came. And the first light crept through the trees. And the Buddha came to check on his newest monk. The texts tell us that the Buddha looked at Angulimala and smiled. Not a cautious smile. Not the careful smile of someone keeping a safe distance from a dangerous person. A full, warm, unreserved smile. The kind of smile you would give to a beloved friend you had been waiting for. And in that smile, Angulimala saw something he had not seen in years, perhaps had never seen in his entire life. He saw that someone believed in him. Not in what he had done, but in what he could become. Not in his past, but in his potential. That smile said, "I see the darkness you have walked through. And I see the light that is still alive inside you. And I am not afraid of either one." Can you imagine what that must have felt like? To be the most hated, most feared, most reviled person in the land, and to have someone look at you with genuine warmth. Not pity, not condescension, not the grim tolerance of someone who is willing to give you a chance but is keeping one hand on the door. Real warmth. Real welcome. The kind that says, "You belong here." Not despite what you have done, but because you are a human being, and human beings are capable of change, and I honor that capacity in you. That single smile from the Buddha did not erase Angulimala's karma. He would go on to suffer greatly for what he had done. People threw stones at him when he went for alms. He was beaten, insulted, rejected by the very communities he now walked through in robes. But he endured it all. He endured it because that smile had planted something inside him. A seed of worthiness. A tiny flame of self-belief. And that flame, kindled by the warmth of the Buddha's face on that trembling morning, sustained him through everything that followed. This is what a smile can do for someone who believes they are beyond redemption. It can remind them that they are not. It can reach into the deepest pit of shame and self-hatred and whisper, "You are still here. You are still alive." And as long as you are alive, transformation is possible. Not everyone will respond to this. Not everyone is ready. But the offering itself, the willingness to look at a broken person with warm eyes and a gentle face, is an act of such profound generosity that its effects ripple outward in ways we cannot calculate. And this is not only about dramatic cases like Angulimala. Think about the smaller, quieter versions of this that happen every day. The teenager who is convinced that no one likes them, who walks through school with their head down and their heart closed, until one day a classmate smiles at them in the hallway and for just a moment, the wall cracks. The elderly person in the care facility who has not had a visitor in weeks, who has started to believe that they have been forgotten, until an aide walks in, smiles at them with genuine warmth, and suddenly the room feels less empty. The person going through a divorce who feels like a failure, who carries the weight of a broken promise on their shoulders every waking moment, until a friend sits across from them at a coffee shop and smiles, not to fix anything, not to offer advice, but simply to say, "I am here, and you are not going through this alone." These moments are not trivial. These moments are the moments that save us. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in the quiet, essential way that air saves us every time we breathe. We do not notice it. We do not think about it. But without it, we would perish. There is a teaching in the Uttara, one of the shorter collections of the Buddha's words, where the Buddha says that if people knew, as he knew, the power of giving and sharing, they would not eat a single meal without having shared it. They would not let a meal pass without offering something to another. I think we can extend this teaching to smiles. If people knew, truly knew, the power of a genuine smile, they would not let a single encounter pass without offering one. They would not walk past another human being without letting their face say, even for a fraction of a second, "I acknowledge you. I see you. You are real to me." Because that is what it comes down to, friends. Being real to someone. Being visible. Being acknowledged as a person who exists, who matters, who takes up space in the world in a way that is noticed and valued. This is one of the deepest human needs, and it is one that is increasingly unmet in our modern world. We live in cities full of people, and yet loneliness has become an epidemic. We have more ways to communicate than ever before, and yet genuine connection is harder to find than ever. We scroll through hundreds of faces on our screens every day, and yet the number of faces that actually see us, that actually register our existence with warmth and recognition, may be heartbreakingly small. A smile will not solve this problem on a systemic level. But a smile can solve it for one person, in one moment, on one ordinary day. And that is not nothing. That is everything. Because life is not lived on a systemic level. Life is lived in moments. And the moments when someone smiles at you with genuine warmth are the moments when life feels most worth living. Let me share another story with you. This one comes from a lesser-known section of the Vinaya Pitaka, the collection of monastic rules and stories. There was a monk named Pilandavaka who had been a Brahmin in his previous life and carried certain habits from that life into his monastic practice. Specifically, he had a tendency to address people in a condescending manner, using familiar and somewhat rude forms of address that were customary for a high-caste Brahmin speaking to those he considered beneath him. Other monks were offended by this and complained to the Buddha. The Buddha, rather than publicly rebuking Pilandavaka, called him aside and spoke to him privately. And then something interesting happened. The Buddha did not give a long lecture about the importance of respectful speech. Instead, he simply told Pilandavaka a story about a previous life they had shared, a life in which Pilandavaka had also carried the habit of condescending speech and had suffered because of it. The Buddha told the story with warmth and even a touch of gentle humor, and throughout the telling, he smiled at Pilandavaka with such affection that the monk felt no shame, no defensiveness, no desire to argue. He simply listened, softened, and resolved to change. What is instructive about this incident is the way the Buddha handled it. He could have used authority. He could have used public pressure. He could have used shame. All of these would have been effective in the short term. But the Buddha chose a different approach. He chose warmth. He chose the quiet, private space of a one-on-one conversation. And he used his smile as a container for truth, wrapping the honest message in so much genuine affection that it could be received without damage. This is a skill that most of us have not developed, and yet it is one of the most valuable skills a person can possess. The ability to tell someone the truth while smiling. Not the sarcastic smile that says, "I am about to say something that will hurt, and I am going to enjoy it." Not the condescending smile that says, "You poor thing, you do not even realize how wrong you are." But the warm, compassionate smile that says, "What I am about to share with you comes from a place of care. I am not trying to diminish you. I am trying to help you grow. And I believe in your ability to hear this and become better for it." How many relationships could be transformed if we learned to deliver honesty with this kind of warmth? How many arguments could be avoided if, instead of approaching each other with hard faces and sharp words, we approached each other with soft eyes and genuine smiles? This does not mean avoiding difficult conversations. It does not mean sugar-coating things or withholding important truths. It means wrapping those truths in enough warmth that they can be received. Because truth without warmth is just a weapon. And no one has ever been healed by a weapon. The Buddha was once described by one of his followers as someone who always speaks at the right time, speaks what is true, speaks what is beneficial, speaks what is connected with the goal, and speaks with a mind of loving kindness. Notice that last part. He speaks with a mind of loving kindness. The content of his speech was true and beneficial, yes. But the container, the vessel in which that truth was delivered, was loving kindness. And that loving kindness was visible on his face. It was carried in his smile. It was communicated in the warmth of his eyes. The truth itself was important, but the warmth with which it was delivered was what made it possible for people to hear it, absorb it, and be transformed by it. We can learn from this. We can learn that the way we deliver our words matters as much as the words themselves. That our face is not separate from our message but is an integral part of it. That a smile, when genuine, creates a safe space in which difficult things can be said and heard without destruction. This is a skill worth developing. Not the skill of smiling on command, but the skill of cultivating genuine warmth so that smiling becomes natural, so that our face reflects the care we feel, so that people can see in our expression that whatever we are about to say comes from a place of love. There is a passage in the Metta Sutta, the Buddha's discourse on loving kindness, that is recited daily by practitioners around the world. It contains the beautiful aspiration, "May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease." When you recite these words sincerely, when you genuinely wish for all beings to be happy and safe, something happens to your face. It softens. The muscles relax. The eyes become gentle. A smile appears, unbidden, unforced. Because the body cannot hold genuine goodwill without expressing it. The inner state of loving kindness naturally produces the outward expression of a smile, just as a flame naturally produces light. You cannot separate the two. They are one and the same. And this tells us something important about the relationship between inner practice and outer expression. If you want to smile more genuinely, more deeply, more frequently, the path is not to practice smiling. The path is to practice loving kindness. The path is to cultivate within yourself a genuine care for the well-being of others. When that care is real, the smile takes care of itself. It appears effortlessly, like a flower appears effortlessly when the soil is rich, the water is sufficient, and the sun is shining. You do not need to force the flower to bloom. You just need to create the right conditions. And the conditions for a genuine smile are not complicated. They are not esoteric. They are not reserved for monks and mystics. The conditions are simply these: attention, presence, and care. Pay attention to the person in front of you. Be present with them, here, now, not lost in your own thoughts. And care about their well-being, even just a little, even just for the duration of this one encounter. When these three conditions are met, the smile comes. It cannot help but come. Because the smile is the natural human response to genuine connection, and genuine connection is what happens when attention, presence, and care come together. Friends, I want to tell you about something that happened at the monastery of Jetavana, one of the main places where the Buddha lived and taught. Among the many people who visited Jetavana, there was a woman named Sapiya who was known for her extraordinary devotion to caring for sick monks. Sapiya would visit the monastery regularly, checking on any monks who were ill, bringing them food and medicine, tending to their needs with a tenderness that moved everyone who witnessed it. One day, a severely ill monk told Sapiya that the physician had recommended a broth made with meat for his recovery. Sapiya searched the entire city for meat but could not find any, as it was a day when no animals had been slaughtered. Without hesitation, and without telling anyone, Sapiya cut a piece of flesh from her own thigh and had her servant prepare a broth from it. She brought the broth to the sick monk with a smile. A real smile. A smile that betrayed no hint of the pain she must have been in. A smile that was focused entirely on the well-being of the person she was caring for, with no thought for herself. When the Buddha heard about what Sapiya had done, he was deeply moved. He praised her generosity but also established a monastic rule against consuming human flesh, to ensure that no layperson would ever feel compelled to make such a sacrifice again. But the image that stays with me from this story is not the dramatic act of self-sacrifice. It is the smile. The smile that Sapiya wore as she handed the broth to the sick monk. A smile that said nothing about her own suffering and everything about her concern for his. A smile so selfless, so pure, so completely oriented toward the welfare of another, that it transcended the boundaries of ordinary kindness and entered the realm of something truly holy. Now, no one is asking you to go to such extremes. That is not the point of this story. The point is the quality of attention and care that lived behind Sapiya's smile. The point is that a smile can be an act of service. Not in a grandiose way, but in the most ordinary, most human way possible. When you smile at someone who is suffering, you are serving them. When you smile at someone who is lonely, you are serving them. When you smile at your child in the morning, even though you are exhausted and would rather stay in bed, you are serving them. Every genuine smile is an act of giving, and every act of giving, no matter how small, ripples outward in ways that we may never fully comprehend. There is an interesting contrast that the early Buddhist texts draw between two types of happiness. The first is called amisa sukha, which means material or worldly happiness, the happiness that comes from getting things, from pleasant sensory experiences, from having your desires met. The second is called niramasa sukha, which means non-material or spiritual happiness, the happiness that comes from within, from the cultivation of wholesome mental states, from the practice of generosity and compassion and awareness. The texts make it clear that amisa sukha is fleeting and unreliable, always dependent on external conditions that we cannot control. But niramasa sukha is stable and self-sustaining, because it arises from causes that we ourselves create. A genuine smile belongs to the category of niramasa sukha. It is a form of happiness that does not depend on getting something. It depends on giving something. It does not arise because life is going well. It arises because the heart is oriented toward warmth. And this distinction matters enormously, because it means that the capacity for a genuine smile is available to everyone, in every circumstance, at every moment. You do not need your life to be perfect in order to smile genuinely. You do not need your problems to be solved. You do not need the future to be certain. You just need to be willing to orient your heart, right now, in this very moment, toward warmth. Toward care. toward the simple wish that the person in front of you be happy. And when you do this, something shifts. Not just in the other person, but in you. The act of smiling opens a door inside your own heart. It lets in light that was waiting just on the other side of your resistance. It softens edges you did not know were sharp. It creates space where there was tightness. And in that space, in that softness, in that light, something new becomes possible. Something that was blocked begins to flow. Something that was frozen begins to thaw. And you realize, perhaps with a start, that you were not smiling for the other person alone. You were smiling for yourself as well. You were giving yourself permission to be soft. Permission to be warm. Permission to be the person you actually want to be, underneath all the armor, underneath all the guardedness, underneath all the years of learning to keep your heart at a safe distance from the world. This is the quiet revolution of a smile. It does not announce itself. It does not carry banners or make speeches. It simply happens, one face at a time, one moment at a time, and the world rearranges itself around it in ways too subtle and too profound for anyone to fully map or measure, but not too subtle for the heart to recognize. You know, there is a quiet kind of grief that many people carry and rarely speak about. It is not the sharp grief of losing someone or the dramatic grief of a life falling apart. It is the slow, steady grief of feeling disconnected. Of moving through crowds and feeling invisible. Of living in a house with other people and still feeling profoundly alone. Of waking up in the morning and not being able to name exactly what is wrong, only knowing that something is missing. Something essential. Something that you once had, perhaps as a child, but lost along the way without noticing when or how it slipped from your hands. This unnamed grief is one of the most widespread forms of suffering in our time, and it does not discriminate. It visits the wealthy and the poor, the young and the old, the successful and the struggling. It sits in the corner of beautiful homes and cramped apartments alike. It rides in luxury cars and on crowded buses. And it has a particular effect on the face. It drains the warmth from the eyes. It pulls the corners of the mouth downward, just slightly, just enough to create an expression of resigned neutrality. Not sad, exactly. Not angry. Just absent. Just checked out. Just going through the motions. If you have ever looked across a subway car or a waiting room and noticed rows of faces wearing this expression, you know what it looks like. And if you are honest with yourself, you know what it feels like, because you have worn that face yourself. We all have. It is the face of a person who has forgotten, temporarily, that they are alive. That they are part of something. That they matter. And into this landscape of quiet disconnection, a genuine smile falls like rain on parched earth. It does not solve the problem. It does not address the systemic causes of loneliness or the cultural forces that drive us apart. But it does something that no policy paper or social program can do. It reminds one person, in one moment, that they have been seen by another human being. And that reminder, small as it seems, can be the thread that keeps someone connected to the fabric of life when everything else feels like it is unraveling. The Buddha was acutely aware of the suffering caused by disconnection. He used the Pali word viveka, which is often translated as solitude or seclusion, to describe a state that can be either healthy or harmful depending on its quality. There is the viveka of a person who withdraws from the noise of the world in order to cultivate inner peace, and this is beneficial. But there is also the viveka of a person who feels cut off, isolated, unable to reach across the divide between themselves and others, and this is a form of suffering. The Buddha's entire teaching career was, in a sense, an attempt to bridge this divide. To show people that they were not as separate as they believed themselves to be. That the boundaries between self and other were more fluid, more permeable, more illusory than they appeared. And a smile is one of the most immediate ways to experience this truth. When you smile at someone and they smile back, something happens that goes beyond mere social convention. For a brief moment, the wall between you dissolves. You are no longer two separate entities transacting a polite exchange. You are 2 points of consciousness recognizing each other, acknowledging each other, warming each other. You are, for that brief moment, experiencing the truth that the Buddha taught, that we are not separate. That your well-being and my well-being are woven together. That when I offer you warmth, I am warmed. That when you receive my smile, I receive something back that no amount of solitude could give me. There is a story from the early Buddhist tradition about a group of monks who lived together in a forest grove near the city of Gazada. These monks were remarkable for the harmony in which they lived. They had no disputes, no jealousies, no power struggles. When the Buddha asked their leader, the Venerable Anuruddha, how they maintained such peace, Anuruddha gave an answer that was both simple and profound. He said, "Lord, we dwell with minds of loving kindness toward each other, both in action and in word and in thought. We consider how fortunate we are to live with such companions. And we greet each other always with joy and warmth, so that each person feels welcomed and valued every single day." Notice what Anuruddha described. He did not mention any elaborate conflict resolution techniques. He did not describe rules or regulations or enforcement mechanisms. He described a culture of warmth. A way of being together in which every person's face communicated welcome, every glance carried friendliness, every encounter began with the unspoken message, "I am glad you are here." And this culture of warmth was not something that happened by accident. It was cultivated, intentionally and daily, through the simple practice of greeting each other with genuine joy. What would it look like if we borrowed this practice for our own lives? For our families, our workplaces, our neighborhoods? What if the first thing we offered the people we live and work with every morning was not a complaint, not a request, not a list of things that needed to be done, but a smile? A real smile. A smile that said, before any words were spoken, "I am glad you are here today. Your presence makes this place better." I suspect that most of the conflicts in our daily lives would shrink considerably if we started this way. Not disappear entirely, of course. Conflict is a natural part of human interaction, and there is nothing wrong with disagreement when it is handled with respect and care. But so many of our daily friction points are not really about the issues themselves. They are about the emotional temperature of the interaction. They are about feeling unappreciated, unseen, taken for granted. They are about the absence of warmth. And a smile at the right moment can raise the emotional temperature of any interaction from freezing to mild, from hostile to civil, from civil to genuinely warm. There was a laywoman in the Buddha's time named Sujata, and her story contains a detail that I find deeply touching. Sujata is best known for offering a bowl of milk rice to the ascetic Siddhartha Gautama on the morning before his enlightenment. This meal, given after years of extreme austerity during which Siddhartha had nearly starved himself to death, gave him the physical strength to sit beneath the Bodhi tree and complete his journey to awakening. It was, by any measure, one of the most consequential meals in the history of the world. But the detail that interests me is not the meal itself. It is the way Sujata offered it. The texts describe her approaching the emaciated ascetic with a golden bowl, kneeling before him, and offering the food with a face full of devotion and warmth. She smiled at him. She did not know who he was. She did not know that he was about to become the Buddha. She did not know that this meal would be remembered for thousands of years. She simply saw a man in need and offered him nourishment with a warm heart and a smiling face. And I think there is something important in the fact that the last human face Siddhartha saw before his enlightenment was a smiling one. The last act of human kindness he received before he penetrated the deepest truths of existence was a meal offered with warmth. Is it too much to say that Sujata's smile was part of his preparation? That the warmth she radiated in that moment was itself a kind of teaching, a reminder, at the threshold of the greatest transformation in human spiritual history, that kindness is the foundation upon which all wisdom rests. I do not think it is too much to say that at all. Because kindness is not separate from wisdom. The Buddha never taught them as separate things. He taught them as two wings of the same bird, and you need both wings to fly. A person who has wisdom without kindness is cold, calculating, removed from the human experience. A person who has kindness without wisdom is warm but easily misled, easily drained, easily overwhelmed. But a person who has both, wisdom and kindness, understanding and warmth, clarity and compassion, that person is free. That person moves through the world like the Buddha moved through the world, with eyes that see clearly and a face that smiles gently, offering both truth and comfort in equal measure. There is a quality of heart that the Pali tradition calls anukampa, which is often translated as compassion but carries a specific nuance that the word compassion alone does not capture. Anukampa literally means trembling with. It describes the state of a heart that trembles in resonance with another's suffering, not from a distance, but from a place of deep identification. When you feel anukampa for someone, you are not looking down at their pain from a position of safety. You are standing beside them, feeling the ground shake beneath both your feet, and staying there. Not running. Not fixing. Just staying. And the smile of anukampa is perhaps the most powerful smile of all. It is the smile that says, I cannot take your pain away. I cannot fix what is broken. I cannot undo what has been done. But I am here. Right here. And I am not leaving. And I am not afraid of your pain. And you do not need to pretend to be okay for my sake. This smile does not ask anything of the suffering person. It does not ask them to be brave, to be positive, to look on the bright side. It simply offers presence. Warm, steady, unwavering presence. And for someone who is drowning in pain, that presence can be the difference between going under and staying afloat. You know, we live in a culture that is deeply uncomfortable with suffering. We want to fix things. We want to solve problems. We want to offer advice and solutions and action plans. And all of these impulses come from a good place, from a genuine desire to help. But sometimes, the most helpful thing you can do for someone who is suffering is not to fix anything at all. Sometimes the most helpful thing is to sit with them, look at them with soft eyes, and smile. Not a smile that minimizes their pain. Not a cheerful, dismissive smile that says, "It will be fine." A quiet smile. A tender smile. A smile that says, "I see you in your pain, and you are still beautiful to me. You are still whole. You are still worthy of warmth." The Buddha modeled this kind of presence throughout his teaching life. When people came to him with their grief, their confusion, their despair, he did not rush to prescribe a solution. He listened. He was present. He held the space with a quality of attention so steady and so warm that people often felt healed simply by being in his presence, before a single word of teaching was offered. And his face, during these encounters, was described consistently in the texts as serene, radiant, smiling, and full of compassion. The smile was not separate from the healing. The smile was part of the healing. It was the visible expression of a heart so open, so spacious, so free from judgment, that it could hold any amount of pain without being destroyed by it. This is what true strength looks like, friends. Not the hardened, tightened, armored strength of someone who refuses to feel, but the soft, open, vulnerable strength of someone who feels everything and still smiles. Who stands in the presence of suffering and does not look away. Who meets the darkest corners of the human experience with a face full of light. This is the strength of the Buddha. This is the strength of every person who has ever chosen warmth over hardness, openness over defense, love over fear. And it starts so simply. It starts with the willingness to soften your face. To relax the muscles around your eyes. To let the corners of your mouth lift, just slightly. To look at the person in front of you, whoever they are, whatever they are carrying, and let your face communicate what your heart already knows, that they are precious. That their life has weight and meaning. That they deserve to be met with gentleness. There is a moment in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the discourse that describes the Buddha's final days, that has always struck me with its quiet beauty. As the Buddha lay between the twin sal trees, preparing to leave his body for the last time, his attendant Ananda was overcome with grief. Ananda, who had served the Buddha faithfully for 25 years, who had been his closest companion, his shadow, his memory, leaned against a doorpost and wept. He wept because the teacher he loved was leaving. He wept because the world would never be the same. He wept because, despite all his years of practice, the pain of loss was simply too great to contain. The Buddha called for Ananda to come to him. And when Ananda came, tears streaming down his face, the Buddha did not scold him for crying. He did not tell him to be strong. He did not lecture him about impermanence, though impermanence was the very truth being demonstrated in that moment. Instead, the Buddha looked at Ananda with profound tenderness and smiled. And he said, with infinite gentleness, "Do not grieve, Ananda. Have I not taught that all things that are dear to us must change and be separated from us? How could it be that what is born, what is formed, what is subject to dissolution, should not dissolve?" But it was not the words that reached Ananda. It was the smile. It was the warmth in the Buddha's eyes as he looked at this man who loved him so much. It was the recognition, conveyed not through doctrine but through the simple language of the face, that Ananda's grief was honored, was seen, was held with compassion. The Buddha did not smile to diminish the gravity of the moment. He smiled because, even at the threshold of death, his heart was full of love. And love, when it is real, when it is deep enough, does not stop smiling even when everything is falling apart. Because the smile is not a denial of the falling apart. It is a testimony that love survives it. That warmth endures. That the connection between hearts does not dissolve when the body dissolves. This is perhaps the most extraordinary thing about a genuine smile. It persists. Long after the face that wore it is gone, the warmth it generated continues to live in the hearts of those who received it. You carry within you, right now, the smiles of people who have already left this world. Your grandmother's smile when she saw you walk through her door. Your teacher's smile when you finally understood something you had been struggling with. A friend's smile on a day when you needed it most and they offered it without being asked. These smiles are alive in you. They are part of your inner landscape. They are threads in the fabric of who you are. And the smiles you offer to others today will become threads in the fabric of who they are, long after you are no longer here to offer them. This is a kind of immortality that requires no belief in any particular afterlife. It is the immortality of kindness. The immortality of warmth. The immortality of one human being choosing, in a fleeting moment, to be gentle with another. That choice echoes. It reverberates. It passes from heart to heart across generations, across centuries, across all the artificial boundaries that we erect between ourselves and each other. The Buddha's smile has been traveling for over 2,500 years. It traveled from the Buddha to his disciples. From his disciples to their students. From those students to their communities. From those communities to entire civilizations. And it is still traveling. Every time someone sits in meditation and feels a wave of peace wash over them, that is the Buddha's smile, still doing its work. Every time someone chooses compassion over cruelty, warmth over coldness, openness over defensiveness, that is the ripple of a smile that was offered under a tree in northern India 2.5 millennia ago. And your smile, friends, carries the same potential. Not the same scope, perhaps. Not the same historical significance. But the same fundamental nature. The same capacity to ripple outward. The same capacity to reach further than you will ever know. When you smile at your child this morning, you are setting in motion a chain of warmth that could extend for generations. When you smile at a colleague who is struggling, you are planting a seed that could bloom in ways and at times that neither of you can predict. When you smile at a stranger on the street, you are casting a stone into the pond of collective human experience, and the ripples will travel to shores you will never visit. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is the nature of interconnection, the fundamental truth that the Buddha spent his life illuminating. We are not separate. Our actions are not isolated events that begin and end with us. Everything we do, every gesture, every expression, every flicker of warmth or coldness on our face, enters the stream of cause and effect and flows onward, touching lives we will never know, shaping moments we will never witness, contributing to a world we will never fully see. And knowing this, what will you choose? Knowing that your face is a message broadcast to every person who encounters it, what message will you send? Knowing that the warmth or coldness of your expression is contagious, spreading from person to person in ways you cannot control, what kind of contagion will you release into the world? These are not rhetorical questions. These are real questions, with real consequences, asked in a real moment of your real life. And the answer, if you are willing to give it, is not complicated. It does not require a degree in philosophy or a lifetime of spiritual practice. It requires only the willingness to be warm. The willingness to let your guard down, just a little. The willingness to risk the vulnerability of an open face in a world that often rewards closed ones. There is a verse attributed to the Buddha that says, "Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened." Happiness never decreases by being shared. Your smile is that candle. Your warmth is that flame. And every person you encounter is a wick waiting to be lit. Not by force. Not by persuasion. Not by argument or instruction. But by the simple, silent, radiant act of being warm. Of being present. Of being genuinely, authentically, courageously kind in a world that sometimes forgets what kindness looks like when it is worn on a human face. And here is something worth sitting with for a moment. We often think of kindness as something we do for others, as something that flows outward, from us to the world. And that is true. But kindness, and especially the kindness expressed through a genuine smile, also flows inward. It does something to you. It changes the chemistry of your own body. It alters the landscape of your own heart. When you smile at someone with genuine warmth, your own nervous system responds. Your muscles relax. Your breath deepens. Stress hormones decrease. Something in your body recognizes the smile as a signal of safety, of connection, of belonging, and it responds accordingly. This means that every time you offer a genuine smile, you are not only giving a gift to the person in front of you. You are giving a gift to yourself. You are telling your own body, your own heart, your own nervous system, we are safe. We are connected. We belong. And in a world that so often makes us feel the opposite, this is no small thing. This is medicine. There is a teaching in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's foundational discourse on mindfulness, that invites practitioners to be aware of the state of the mind in each moment. The Buddha lists various mental states and asks the practitioner to recognize them as they arise. When the mind is contracted, one knows the mind is contracted. When the mind is expansive, one knows the mind is expansive. When the mind has loving kindness, one knows the mind has loving kindness. This simple practice of recognition, of knowing what is present in the mind right now, is the foundation of all Buddhist meditation. And I bring this up because it connects to our conversation about smiling in a way that might not be immediately obvious. When you practice mindfulness of your own mental states, you begin to notice something interesting. You notice that certain states naturally produce a smile, and certain states naturally suppress one. When gratitude is present, the face softens and a smile emerges. When resentment is present, the face hardens and the smile retreats. When curiosity is alive, the eyes brighten and the corners of the mouth lift. When boredom settles in, the whole face goes flat and dull. By becoming aware of this connection between inner states and facial expression, you gain a remarkable tool for self-understanding. Your face becomes a mirror of your mind. And if you do not like what you see in that mirror, you do not need to force a change in your expression. You need to tend to the garden of your inner life. Pull a few weeds of resentment. Water the seeds of gratitude. Let some sunlight into the darker corners. And as the inner landscape shifts, the face shifts with it. Naturally. Effortlessly. Authentically. This is a very different approach from the one our culture usually offers. Our culture says, smile more. Look happy. Project positivity. And there is something exhausting about this instruction, because it asks us to change the surface without addressing the roots. It asks us to paint the walls of a house whose foundation is crumbling. The Buddha's approach is the opposite. He says, tend to the foundation. Cultivate wholesome states. Practice awareness. Practice kindness. Practice gratitude. And the surface will take care of itself. There was a monk named Baiya who came to the Buddha in great urgency, convinced that he did not have much time left to live and desperate for the essence of the teaching. The Buddha, recognizing Baiya's sincerity and his readiness, gave him what is considered one of the most concise and profound teachings in all of Buddhist literature. He said, in the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, there is only the heard. In the sensed, there is only the sensed. In the cognized, there is only the cognized. When for you there is only the seen in the seen, only the heard in the heard, only the sensed in the sensed, only the cognized in the cognized, then you will not be in that. When you are not in that, you will not be there. When you are not there, you will be neither here nor there nor in between. This itself is the end of suffering. Baiya, it is said, was immediately awakened upon hearing these words. And the texts describe what happened to his face in that moment of awakening. It broke into a smile of such radiance, such depth, such freedom, that those who witnessed it were themselves moved to the core. This was not a smile of pleasure or satisfaction. This was the smile of a being who had just been liberated from the prison of his own mental constructions. The smile of someone who, for the first time, saw reality as it actually is, without the distorting lens of craving, aversion, and delusion. And that smile, the smile of liberation, is described in the Buddhist tradition as the most beautiful smile a human face can produce. We may not experience the kind of sudden awakening that Baiya experienced. But we can experience small moments of liberation throughout our day. Moments when we let go of a worry that was consuming us. Moments when we forgive someone who hurt us. Moments when we stop comparing ourselves to others and simply rest in the okayness of being exactly who we are. And in each of these moments of small liberation, a smile wants to emerge. A smile that says, I put something down. I let something go. I am a little lighter than I was a moment ago. Pay attention to these moments, friends. They are more common than you think. And the smile that accompanies them is worth noticing, worth savoring, worth celebrating quietly in the privacy of your own heart. Because each of these small smiles of release is a rehearsal. It is a rehearsal for the larger letting go that is at the heart of the Buddha's teaching. The letting go not just of individual worries and grudges, but of the entire habit of clinging that keeps us bound to suffering. Each small smile of release tells your heart, this is what freedom feels like. This is the direction we are moving in. And it is good. You know, there is a beautiful image in the Buddhist tradition of the lotus flower growing out of the mud. The lotus does not grow in clean, clear water. It grows in swamps, in marshes, in muddy ponds where the water is dark and thick. And yet, when it breaks through the surface, it is pristine. Unstained. Radiant. The mud does not stick to it. The darkness through which it traveled does not define it. The lotus is the embodiment of transformation, of beauty emerging from difficulty, of light growing out of darkness. A genuine smile is like a lotus. It often grows out of mud, out of difficulty, out of pain, out of the messy, complicated, sometimes dark soil of human experience. The most genuine smiles you will ever see are not on the faces of people whose lives are easy. They are on the faces of people who have known difficulty and have chosen, nevertheless, to remain open, to remain warm, to remain tender. Their smile is not naive. It is not ignorant of suffering. It is informed by suffering. It has been deepened by suffering. It has passed through the fire and come out not hardened but softened, not bitter but sweet, not closed but more open than ever. If you are going through a difficult time right now, if you are carrying something heavy, if the mud of your life feels particularly thick and dark, I want you to know something. Your smile is not gone. It has not been destroyed. It has not been taken from you. It is still there, waiting beneath the surface, waiting for the conditions that will allow it to rise. And those conditions are not external. They do not depend on your circumstances changing. They depend on something much more intimate, much more within your reach. They depend on your willingness to be gentle with yourself. To stop demanding that you be okay. To stop judging yourself for struggling. To simply say, to your own heart, with the same tenderness you would offer a dear friend, this is hard. And that is all right. And I am still here. And I still have warmth to give. When you say this to yourself, something shifts. The pressure eases. The constriction loosens. And from that loosening, from that small act of self-compassion, a smile begins to form. Not a big smile. Not a dramatic smile. A small, private, tender smile that is just for you. A smile that acknowledges your own courage, your own resilience, your own stubborn, beautiful refusal to let the darkness have the final word. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition about a deity named Rohitasa who once approached the Buddha with a question that had been troubling him for eons. Rohitasa had been searching for the end of the world. In a previous life, he had possessed supernatural speed and had spent his entire lifetime running, literally running, trying to reach the edge of the cosmos, the place where suffering ends and peace begins. He ran without stopping for food, for rest, for anything at all. And he died without reaching his destination. The Buddha listened to Rohitasa's story and then said something remarkable. He said, "Friend, I declare that the end of the world cannot be reached by traveling. But I also declare that without reaching the end of the world, there is no ending of suffering. It is within this fathom-long body, with its perceptions and its mind, that I make known the world, the arising of the world, the cessation of the world, and the path leading to the cessation of the world. What the Buddha was saying, in essence, is that everything we are searching for is already here. The peace we crave, the freedom we long for, the happiness we chase across the landscape of our lives, none of it is somewhere else. All of it is here, within this body, within this mind, within this heart. And a smile, a genuine smile, is one of the clearest signs that we have touched this truth, even if only for a moment. When you smile from a place of genuine inner peace, you are not reaching outward for something you lack. You are expressing something you already have. Something you have always had. Something that no amount of running will ever bring you closer to, because you cannot get closer to something that is already at the center of your being. This is one of the great paradoxes of the spiritual life. We search and search and search, and what we find, when we finally stop searching, is that the treasure was buried in our own backyard all along. The peace was not across the ocean. It was in the next breath. The happiness was not in the next achievement. It was in the present moment. And the smile was not waiting for better circumstances. It was waiting for us to stop running, to sit down, to be still, and to notice that we already have everything we need to be warm. Friends, there is another dimension to the smile that we have not yet explored, and it has to do with silence. In our noisy world, we place enormous value on words, on eloquence, on the ability to articulate, to explain, to persuade. And words are wonderful things. They can educate, inspire, comfort, and connect. But there are moments when words are not enough. Moments when language fails. Moments when the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present, be quiet, and smile. Think about the moment you hold a newborn baby for the first time. What words are adequate to that experience? None. You hold the baby, you look at that tiny face, and you smile. And the smile says everything that words could never say. It says, "You are a miracle. You are the most extraordinary thing I have ever seen. I am overwhelmed by the fact that you exist." Think about the moment you watch a sunset so beautiful that it makes your chest ache. What words capture that? None that are fully adequate. You stand there, you watch the sky turn colors that have no names, and you smile. And the smile is the only appropriate response to beauty that exceeds the capacity of language. Think about the moment you reunite with someone you love after a long absence. Before any words are spoken, before any stories are exchanged, before any explanations are given, there is a moment of pure, wordless recognition. Your eyes meet. And you both smile. And in that smile is compressed every day you spent apart, every moment you missed each other, every prayer you whispered for each other's safety. No words could carry that much meaning. But a smile can. A smile can hold it all. The Buddha himself was known for a particular kind of teaching that went beyond words entirely. It is sometimes called the flower sermon, but I am not referring to the Zen story of the same name. I am referring to the broader principle that the Buddha's most profound teachings were often communicated not through words but through presence. Through silence. Through the quality of attention he brought to each moment and each person. And through his smile. There were times when the Buddha would simply sit in the assembly, smiling, saying nothing, and the silence itself would become a teaching. People would sit in that silence and feel something shift inside them. Not because a concept had been explained. Not because a doctrine had been transmitted. But because the quality of the Buddha's presence, the warmth of his face, the depth of his smile, communicated a truth that no words could capture, that peace is possible. That freedom is real. That love is the most powerful force in the universe. We underestimate silence. We fill every gap in conversation with noise, afraid that silence means emptiness, that quiet means disconnection. But the opposite is often true. Silence, when it is held with warmth, when it is accompanied by a gentle smile and soft eyes, can be the most intimate form of communication there is. It says, I do not need to fill this space with words. I do not need to perform for you. I do not need to prove anything. I am simply here, with you, and that is enough. If you have ever sat with someone you love in comfortable silence, you know exactly what this feels like. You know the richness of it. The fullness of it. The way it feels more nourishing than any conversation. And if you pay attention to what is happening on your face during these moments of comfortable silence, you will notice a smile. A quiet, almost imperceptible smile. A smile that is not trying to communicate anything in particular. A smile that is simply the natural expression of a heart that is at peace, in the company of someone it trusts. There is a term in the Buddhist tradition called noble silence, and it refers to the kind of silence that arises not from having nothing to say, but from having transcended the need to say anything. It is the silence of fullness, not of emptiness. The silence of completion, not of lack. And the smile that accompanies noble silence is, in many ways, the highest form of communication. It speaks a language older than words, deeper than concepts, more universal than any tongue. It is the language of the heart recognizing itself in another heart. And it needs no translation. I want you to think about someone in your life right now. Someone who is going through a hard time. Someone you care about but have not known how to help. You have wanted to say the right thing, to offer the right advice, to find the perfect words that would somehow make their burden lighter. And you have struggled, because the right words never seem to come. The problem seems too big for language. The pain seems too deep for platitudes. Here is what I want to suggest to you. The next time you see this person, do not worry about finding the perfect words. Do not rehearse a speech. Do not prepare a list of solutions. Just be there. Just be present. And smile at them. Smile at them with the full warmth of your heart. Let your face say what your mouth cannot articulate. Let your eyes communicate the depth of your care. Let the curve of your lips tell them that they are not alone, that they are loved, that their pain has been witnessed and honored. You may be surprised at what happens. You may find that this wordless offering, this silent gesture of warmth, reaches them more deeply than any eloquent speech could. You may find that they exhale. That their shoulders drop. That their eyes fill with tears, not of sadness but of relief. The relief of being seen. The relief of not having to explain or justify their pain. The relief of being met, simply and completely, with warmth. This is what the Buddha did for people, day after day, year after year, for 45 years of teaching. Yes, he gave discourses. Yes, he explained doctrines. Yes, he answered questions and resolved disputes and offered guidance on every conceivable aspect of the spiritual life. But beneath all of that, beneath the words and the concepts and the techniques, was something more fundamental. Something more powerful. Something that made all the words and concepts and techniques possible. And that something was the warmth of his presence. The steadiness of his gaze. The genuineness of his smile. The unmistakable, irreducible message of his face: you are welcome here. You are seen here. You are loved here. And whatever you are carrying, you do not have to carry it alone. This message, friends, is available to every single one of us. Not just to Buddhas and saints and enlightened beings. To everyone. To you. Right now. Today. In the next moment you encounter another living being. The capacity for this kind of warmth is not earned or achieved or developed through years of rigorous practice, though practice can deepen it immeasurably. It is innate. It is part of your original equipment as a human being. You were born with the ability to smile. You were born with the ability to radiate warmth. You were born with the ability to look at another person and let your face say, without a single word, you matter. And the world, this beautiful, broken, aching, magnificent world, needs that message now more than it has ever needed anything. Not from a podium. Not from a screen. Not from a billboard or a bumper sticker or a social media post. From a face. From your face. From the living, breathing, irreplaceable face that you carry into every room, every conversation, every encounter of your one wild and precious life. There was a moment, and I will carry it with me always, when I understood this truth not as an idea but as an experience. It was an ordinary moment. Nothing special was happening. Nothing dramatic or noteworthy. Just two people, facing each other, and one of them smiled. And in that smile was everything. Every teaching, every scripture, every prayer, every act of devotion that has ever been offered by any human being in the long history of our species. It was all there, compressed into the simple act of one face opening toward another with warmth. And I thought, if this is possible between two ordinary people on an ordinary day in an ordinary place, then nothing is ordinary. Everything is sacred. Every encounter is a doorway. Every face is an altar. And every smile is a prayer, offered not to some distant deity but to the living, breathing, suffering, hoping, trembling person standing right in front of you, the person who, just like you, is trying to find their way through this extraordinary, heartbreaking, astonishing experience of being alive on a spinning planet in the middle of an incomprehensibly vast universe, with nothing to hold on to but each other. And maybe that is enough. Maybe holding on to each other, reaching toward each other, smiling at each other across the distances we have created, maybe that is the whole point. Maybe we have been searching for meaning in grand philosophies and elaborate systems when the meaning was always right here, in the space between two faces, in the warmth that passes between two pairs of eyes, in the quiet miracle of one person looking at another and choosing, deliberately and freely, to be gentle. You know, there is a teaching from the Buddha that I keep returning to in my own reflections, and it has to do with the concept of apamita, which is often translated as heedfulness or diligence, but which carries a deeper meaning than either of those English words can fully capture. Apamita is the quality of taking life seriously in the most beautiful sense. Not seriously as in grim or heavy, but seriously as in fully engaged, fully present, fully aware that each moment matters. The Buddha considered apamita so important that his very last words before passing away were, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence." That word, diligence, is apamita. And it is essentially a call to be awake. To not sleepwalk through your precious human life. To notice what is in front of you. To respond to what is in front of you. To care about what is in front of you. And when we apply apamita to the practice of smiling, something powerful happens. We stop smiling out of habit and start smiling out of awareness. We stop offering our warmth reflexively and start offering it intentionally. Each smile becomes a conscious act. A choice. A moment of full presence in which we say, with the whole of our being, "I am here. I see you. And I choose warmth." This kind of intentional warmth is different from automatic politeness. Automatic politeness is fine. It keeps the social machinery running smoothly. But it does not touch people. It does not reach into the lonely places. It does not melt the ice that forms around a neglected heart. Intentional warmth does. Intentional warmth, delivered through a smile that is fully present and fully meant, has the power to reach places that nothing else can reach. Because the person receiving it can feel the intention behind it. They can feel that this smile is not a reflex. It is a gift. And that distinction, subtle as it may seem, makes all the difference. There is a story from the Therigatha, the collection of poems composed by the earliest Buddhist nuns, that speaks to this beautifully. A nun named Mutta composed a short poem celebrating her liberation. But before Mutta found her freedom, she lived a life of quiet desperation. She was trapped in an unhappy marriage to a hunchbacked man who treated her with indifference and sometimes cruelty. She felt invisible. She felt worthless. She felt as though the light inside her had been slowly extinguished, year after year, until there was nothing left but a faint glow buried deep beneath layers of resignation. What changed for Mutta was not a dramatic rescue. No hero arrived. No circumstances shifted. What changed was that she encountered a community of women who smiled at her. Not with pity. Not with the condescending sympathy that makes a suffering person feel even more diminished. They smiled at her with recognition. With welcome. With the unmistakable message, "You are one of us. You belong here. And the light inside you is not gone. We can see it. Even if you cannot see it yourself right now, we can see it, and we are going to keep smiling at you until you can see it too." That experience of being smiled at, of being welcomed, of being seen and valued by a community of warm faces, gave Mutta the courage to change her life. She eventually left her marriage, ordained as a nun, and practiced until she attained full liberation. And the poem she composed to celebrate her freedom is one of the most joyful in the entire Therigatha collection. It radiates the same warmth that was first offered to her by those smiling faces. The warmth had come full circle. What she received, she was now giving. What was given to her as a gift, she was now passing on as a legacy. This is how warmth works in the world. It circulates. It moves from person to person, from generation to generation, from heart to heart, never diminishing, always growing, always finding new faces to shine through. You are part of this circulation whether you know it or not. Every smile you have ever received is still alive inside you, and every smile you offer sends that aliveness forward into the stream of time. Friends, I want to explore something that might seem paradoxical at first. We have been talking about the power of a smile to connect people, to bridge distances, to bring comfort and warmth. But there is another dimension to the smile that is equally important, and it has to do with the relationship you have with yourself. Because before you can truly smile at another person, you need to be able to smile at yourself. And for many people, this is the hardest smile of all. We are so hard on ourselves, are we not? We carry around an inner critic that is relentless, tireless, and devastatingly articulate. It knows exactly where our weaknesses are. It knows exactly what to say to make us feel small. It compiles a highlight reel of our worst moments and plays it on repeat. And under the weight of this inner criticism, the ability to smile at ourselves, to look at our own reflection with genuine warmth and acceptance, can feel almost impossible. The Buddha addressed this inner harshness in a discourse that is sometimes overlooked. In the Atidanda Sutta, the Buddha speaks about the fear and hostility that beings carry within themselves, the internal war that rages even when the external world is at peace. He describes the heart as a fish flopping on dry ground, agitated, panicked, unable to find rest. And his prescription is not to fight the agitation but to find a place of inner safety, a refuge within the heart itself, from which one can look at one's own struggles with compassion rather than judgment. This is what it means to smile at yourself. To look at your own imperfections, your own mistakes, your own messy, complicated, sometimes embarrassing humanity, and instead of turning away in disgust, to soften. To let a gentle warmth rise toward your own struggling heart. To say to yourself what you would say to a dear friend, you are doing your best. It is not perfect. It was never going to be perfect. And that is okay. You are worthy of warmth, not despite your flaws but with your flaws, all of them, every single one. There was a monk named Channa who struggled terribly after the Buddha's passing. Channa had been the Buddha's charioteer before the Great Renunciation, the man who drove the Prince Siddhartha out of the palace on the night he left his royal life behind. After the Buddha's enlightenment, Channa ordained as a monk, but he carried a kind of spiritual arrogance. He felt special because of his connection to the Buddha's pre-enlightenment life, and this sense of specialness made it difficult for him to accept instruction from other monks. After the Buddha's passing, the Sangha imposed a disciplinary measure on Channa, essentially a form of social isolation designed to help him overcome his pride. At first, Channa was defiant. Then he was angry. Then he was devastated. He went through a period of intense suffering, feeling rejected, humiliated, and utterly alone. And it was during this dark period that something shifted inside him. He stopped fighting. He stopped defending. He stopped insisting on his own specialness. And in that surrender, in that laying down of arms, he was able to look at himself honestly, perhaps for the first time. He saw his arrogance for what it was, a shield against the fear of being ordinary, of being just another struggling being in a world full of struggling beings. And when Channa saw this, really saw it, without flinching, without looking away, something unexpected happened. He felt compassion for himself. Not self-pity, which is a form of drowning. Compassion, which is a form of floating. He looked at his own foolishness and his own pain and his own loneliness, and instead of condemning himself, he smiled. A small, sad, honest, tender smile. The smile of a person who has stopped pretending and has discovered that the truth, even when it is humbling, is more bearable than the lie. That smile was the beginning of Channa's real practice. That smile was the crack through which the light entered. And according to the texts, Channa went on to practice with genuine humility and sincerity, and eventually attained full awakening. The disciplinary measure was lifted. The community welcomed him back. But the real homecoming had already happened, in that quiet moment when Channa smiled at his own broken heart and found, to his astonishment, that the heart was not as broken as he thought. It was just tender. And tenderness, it turns out, is not a weakness. It is the very soil in which wisdom grows. I share this story because I suspect that many of you are harder on yourselves than you would ever be on another person. I suspect that many of you carry an inner dialogue that is harsh, critical, unforgiving, a voice that would never be tolerated if it came from someone else but is somehow accepted because it comes from inside your own head. And I want to suggest that the practice of smiling at yourself, of meeting your own reflection with warmth, of looking at your own struggles with the same compassion you would offer a friend, is not self-indulgent. It is essential. Because the quality of warmth you offer to the world is directly connected to the quality of warmth you offer to yourself. If the well is dry inside, you cannot draw water for others. If the fire has gone out in your own hearth, you cannot warm another person's hands. Taking care of your own heart, being gentle with your own imperfections, smiling at your own stumbling journey through this bewildering life, this is not a distraction from the work of compassion. This is the foundation of the work of compassion. The Buddha taught a practice called self-metta, directing loving kindness toward oneself, that many people find surprisingly difficult. The instructions are simple: sit quietly, place your hand on your heart, and silently repeat phrases of well-being toward yourself. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I be at ease. And as you repeat these phrases, let a gentle smile form on your face. Let your body feel the warmth of these wishes directed inward. Let yourself receive the same kindness you so generously offer to others. If you try this and it feels awkward, if it feels strange or even painful to direct warmth toward yourself, that is completely normal. It means that the channel of self-compassion has been unused for a long time and needs gentle coaxing to open again. Do not force it. Do not judge yourself for finding it difficult. Just keep offering the phrases, keep allowing the smile, keep placing your hand on your heart, and trust that the channel will open in its own time. Because it will. The heart wants to receive love just as much as it wants to give it. And when you finally allow yourself to be a recipient of your own warmth, something profound shifts. The smile that was tight and effortful becomes easy and natural. The warmth that was forced becomes genuine. And you discover that the kindness you have been searching for, the kindness you have been hoping to receive from the world, was available inside you all along. You were just looking in the wrong direction. There is a beautiful image in the Buddhist tradition of the moon reflected in water. The moon does not choose which bodies of water to reflect in. It shines equally on the ocean and the puddle, the sacred river and the stagnant pond. Wherever there is stillness, the moon appears. The water does not need to earn the moon's reflection. It does not need to be pure or deep or important. It just needs to be still. Your smile is like the moon's reflection. When the mind is still, when the heart is open, when the inner turmoil settles even for a moment, the smile appears. You do not need to create it. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to be worthy of it. You just need to be still enough, open enough, quiet enough for it to find its way to your face. And when it does, it will shine equally on everyone it encounters, without discrimination, without preference, without condition. Because that is the nature of genuine warmth. It does not choose favorites. It does not keep score. It simply shines. And in its shining, it reminds us of something we tend to forget. It reminds us that beneath the stress and the worry and the to-do lists and the deadlines and the arguments and the disappointments, beneath all the noise and clutter of our overscheduled lives, there is a layer of being that is already at peace. Already warm. Already smiling. This layer does not need to be constructed or achieved. It needs to be uncovered. It is like a sky that is always blue behind the clouds. The clouds come and go. They are thick sometimes, so thick that we forget the sky is even there. But the sky is always there. The blue is always there. And the smile that reflects our deepest nature, our most fundamental okayness, is always there too, waiting patiently behind whatever clouds are currently passing through. You know, friends, we began this conversation by noticing something simple. That a genuine smile has a quiet kind of magic to it. That it can bridge distances, dissolve barriers, and bring unexpected warmth to the coldest moments. And now, having wandered together through stories and teachings and reflections, having sat together with monks and nuns and merchants and elephants and dying boys and golden deer, having traveled across centuries and continents without ever leaving this quiet space between us, we have arrived somewhere that feels both familiar and new. We have arrived at the understanding that a smile is not just a social gesture. It is an expression of our deepest humanity. It is a prayer without words. It is a gift that costs nothing and is worth everything. It is a bridge between loneliness and belonging, between isolation and connection, between the separate self and the vast, interconnected web of life that holds us all. And the most extraordinary thing about this bridge is that you carry it with you everywhere you go. It is always available. It does not require special circumstances or ideal conditions. It does not require the absence of pain or the presence of happiness. It requires only the willingness to open. The willingness to be soft in a hard world. The willingness to let your face say what your heart has always known, that we belong to each other. That your joy is my joy. That your pain is my pain. That in this great, mysterious, heartbreaking, breathtaking adventure of being alive, the greatest gift we can offer each other is the simple, wordless reassurance of a warm face and gentle eyes. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up and the day stretches out before you with all its uncertainties and demands and possibilities, I hope you will remember this. Not as a teaching to be applied or a lesson to be studied, but as a truth to be lived. A truth as old as the first human beings who looked at each other across a fire and smiled. A truth as fresh as the next breath you take. A truth that lives not in books or on screens but in the muscles of your face, in the chambers of your heart, in the space between you and every other being who walks this earth. The Buddha spent 45 years walking through cities and forests, monasteries and palaces, speaking to kings and beggars, scholars and children. He gave thousands of discourses. He established a community that would endure for millennia. He illuminated the nature of suffering and the path to its cessation with a clarity that has never been surpassed. And through all of it, through every teaching, every conversation, every silent meditation under starlit skies, his face carried a smile. A smile that was not about him. A smile that was for everyone. A smile that said, to every single being who was fortunate enough to encounter it, you are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are not beyond the reach of love. And as long as there is warmth in even one heart, there is hope for the whole world. That warmth is in your heart right now. That hope lives in your face right now. And somewhere out there, right now, at this very moment, someone is waiting to receive the gift that only you can give. Not your money. Not your advice. Not your expertise or your accomplishments or your carefully curated image. Just your smile. Your real, honest, unguarded, fully human smile. The one that comes from the place inside you that has never been damaged, never been diminished, never been extinguished, no matter what you have been through. Give it away. Give it freely, generously, recklessly, without counting the cost, without calculating the return. Give it to the stranger on the street and the loved one at your table. Give it to the person who cut you off in traffic and the person who held the door for you. Give it to the child who needs encouragement and the elder who needs companionship. Give it to the person who is smiling back at you and the person who is not. Give it to yourself, in the mirror, in the quiet of the morning, in the solitude of the night, whenever you forget that you too deserve tenderness. Give it away, friends. And watch what happens. Watch how the world rearranges itself, quietly, imperceptibly, around the warmth you offer. Watch how the distances close. Watch how the walls thin. Watch how the loneliness loosens its grip. Watch how the ordinary becomes extraordinary, how the mundane becomes sacred, how the simple act of turning up the corners of your mouth and letting your eyes go soft becomes, in its own small and magnificent way, a revolution. Not a loud revolution. Not a revolution of marching and shouting and tearing things down. A quiet revolution. A revolution of warmth. A revolution that begins on your face and ends in someone else's heart. A revolution that asks nothing of you except your willingness to be human. Fully, tenderly, courageously, beautifully human. And that, friends, that is the miracle. Not somewhere far away. Not sometime in the future. Not in the hands of someone more qualified or more enlightened or more deserving. Right here. Right now. On your face. In your heart. Between you and the next person you see. The miracle is yours to give. And it always has been.